What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Modern Craftsman Monday.
Monday. We need fireworks. Yeah.
Thump.
No, the fireworks for the 200th.
Oh, my bad. I thought we were going into
I mean, you
ads.
could have people doing burnouts too, I guess. We need parade fireworks.
Hold on. We need a song. We can't. I can't do a song because then I'll get in trouble for using
Yeah.
it. Right?
Can you use the Star Spangled Banner?
Fireworks.
That'd be
Make
messed up if they
sounds.
pulled it for using the Star Spangled Banner.
Imagine. Hold on. I think I got some sounds.
Do you?
Let's see. I think.
This could
Oh,
go
it's an
this
ad.
could
Hold
go
on. I don't
this
pay.
could
I don't pay. I don't pay for YouTube Premium.
this could go
Apparently.
terribly wrong. Just put that on the company card, man. Oh yeah, that's firework. Actually sounds like a war zone.
Does sound like Warzone. Those are fireworks, guys. 200 episodes. The Modern Craftsman. We've been going strong for I don't even know how long. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it did.
It's a long
It's pretty
time.
cool.
It's a long
It's pretty
time.
cool to hit 200.
Yeah,
It is a
I mean
long
that's
time.
a lot. That's a lot of 3-hour podcasts. So it's a lot of time making them. It's obviously a lot of time listening to them. So thanks to everyone who's kind of been along on this crazy ride for
Dude,
200 long.
if we did if we average it out at 3 hours podcast, that's 600. No, wait.
Yeah,
Yeah, 600 hours.
your math is on point.
I know. I can't believe I almost screwed that up. And
um,
if I'm making what, $25 an hour, dude, that's $15,000.
damn, you're set.
I should have been charging you guys for this
You're
stuff.
set. No, it's I forget how much time and effort has been put into this, but like I said, on the other hand, there's been a lot of support throughout all of this, and we appreciate the reviews, so keep them coming. We
Mhm.
appreciate you spreading the word. It can be spread on Instagram, it can be spread at family dinner, it can be spread when you are at your sporting events with your children. Um, if you don't have children, it could be spread at church. It could be, whatever you do. It could be the workplace, but definitely keep getting the word out there. Keep us relevant. Keep us up in the ratings, and that kind of helps give us what we need to keep moving forward with this. So on all those podcast platforms, subscribe, like us, share us, and definitely give us more reviews. They can be fast reviews. You could just hop
Mm.
on, take 2 seconds,
Let's get
and
some hearts, just like a
yeah,
heart emoji.
anything. We broke over 1,000, but let's keep going with it. It definitely helps get it puts us at the top of that whole algorithm to get the word out, keep
Mhm.
things moving ahead, keep growing this podcast, and allowing us more and more time to kind of set aside and devote to this part of our life and our business. So
I got a big ask. I want anyone that is listening. I feel like we've asked this before, like, hey, what do you guys want to hear more of? Like, who should we have on the podcast? Hit us up on Instagram, shoot us a DM, and let us know one thing. Like why, like the one reason that you guys listen to this podcast. And that's it. That I think that I know that we want to know what is that one thing because it's different for everyone. And, it's different for why we do it. It's different for why I listen to other podcasts. But let's get an answer on that.
yeah, and I'm actually not going to expand on that because I feel like that's where my brain's going. But if I start talking too much about something else, we're going to
Yeah,
lose
let's not
track of
guide this.
that.
Yeah,
So,
let's not guide that. The one reason that you guys listen to the podcast, hit us up on Instagram, let us know. Today we have Rob. I'm gonna butcher his
I
name
think it's
again.
Del Biondo.
Yeah, DelBiondo, from Columbus, Ohio, or just outside of
About 40 minutes west.
East.
I think he
East.
said he goes east to the city. Didn't he say he has to go 40 minutes east to get to
You
work?
know what I'm learning is we're just not really good at our geography, Tyler.
Maybe. I'm good at everything north of the United States.
Yeah,
That's what
that is,
my specialty is
as the kids
Canada.
say, that is cap.
Yeah. My specialty is Canada.
Well, he is a remodeling and now new home building contractor, He wants to talk about craftsmanship, net zero, passive building, and things like that. But instead, we get into building wealth, investing, what this industry offers, how you can make a great living in this industry, but how it's not the end all be all. Uh, and he also drops a bomb about how he was going to move to Boston and come work for me until I ruin that.
Yeah, I mean, we touch base on basically, I guess we've touched on it before, but kind of that a lot of the issues that you feel may be unique to yourself in this business, and the headaches that you have, those are not exclusive to you. They're not exclusive to budget, to clientele, to geographic location. I think that they kind of transcend a lot of that, and issues that Nick have are also issues that I have, are also issues that Rob has, and I think that that goes for all different levels of this industry, of this all different markets. These problems, while they may be on different scales, and we may deal with differently, they're not exclusive to one area. And moving from one place to another doesn't mean that you're going to solve your problems.
That is accurate. Guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. Check them out on their website, durationmillwork.com. Also, check them out on Instagram. But I recently told this story and I wanted to follow up on it. So, we had this project in the south end of Boston where we needed to do some historic restoration. And I had talked about how they originally declined the use of boral, but come to find out, she was new in the office, didn't realize that this product was used for a huge restoration project in Boston. Quickly got the approval, but it's all thanks to the fact that I was able to reach out to Keith over at Duration, and he actually gave me some documentation to help support the historic, significance, or the historic the issues that the historic society had, or answers to, I should say. I'm butchering this, but he was able to help guide me through that process. And ultimately, like, one thing that, Tyler, you and I learned at the LBM Expo is how they're offsetting this stuff from going into a landfill. I think I had asked the question point blank. I'm like, well, if you're not using the coal byproduct, where does it go?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much straightforward. He's like, and what we aren't using is sitting in a landfill doing nothing. So,
Right. And it's like, so they're reducing it, immensely. I was actually on their website earlier, and on the bottom, it actually talks about being certified SCS Global Services certified, meaning that they're minimum 70% recycled content, which that alone, I mean, I kept trying to pry questions out of them that would make me like, oh, see,
yeah,
that's the
gotcha
catch.
there.
But it just it you know, I've worked with it, the one downside is that you need specialty tools, but it's like, you whatever.
Yes and
Like,
no. Like, you don't need specialty tools.
I shouldn't
If
say
you
that. You
do
need
enough of
specialty
it,
blade.
if you do enough of it, you should dedicate tools to it.
That's a much better way to put it.
But you don't. Any tool that you have now will cut it, will route it, will mill it. But once you do that, a lot of times if you use a saw blade, just keep that as a dedicated boral saw blade. Um,
Right.
which is that's not an issue for me.
And if you do cut something last minute and then you need a saw blade to return back to wood and you don't have one on site, well, then you just call your guys over at Rent or Run and have them deliver one right to the job. You see
That's
that?
true.
You
That's
see that?
true.
Oh.
You can't.
Well, you guys know the podcast is also brought to you by the guys at Rent or Run. They're expanding, they're growing. Philly, Chicago, Boston, and some of the provinces up in
Provinces,
Canada.
America's hat.
Is that a thing?
I'll look it up
Okay.
while we're
Well,
going with
while
this.
you're looking that up, so Rent or Run, I've been using it for 6 months now, maybe even longer than that. I feel like I've been saying 6 months for 6 months, but we use it when, rather than jumping off the job site, running to a hardware store, the lumber yard, we're getting in touch with our sales rep or hopping on the app on our phone, placing our order, and that stuff is showing up within 2 hours. And frankly, you do that once, it saves you that, 3-hour, 4-hour round trip. you're able to stay more productive on the job site. And they haven't told me to stop promoting the coffee, so they show up with coffee too.
Yeah, so
So
that's a real thing. There's t-shirts, patches, buttons, hats, um,
America's hat.
posters.
Is this what we're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a real thing.
I thought you were saying that Reno Run's a real thing. I was like,
No,
it
well,
is.
Reno runs a real thing too, but Canada America's hat is a real thing. There's
There we
actually
go.
a fair amount of stuff that you can find on it. So you didn't hear it here first, but maybe you did. I didn't make it up though. I like made a point to start drinking more water because I feel like the only liquids I get in a day are coffee.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
So like I still drink a fair amount of coffee, so now I just feel like I pee all day long.
How much coffee do you actually drink?
I actually haven't been drinking as much, like, I don't know, a few cups a day.
Are you making it or buying it?
Yeah, making it
So, hot, iced?
hot. I mean, if I'm like leaving work and it's in the middle of the day, I'll typically stop and grab a coffee and grab Rachel one because she works from home. Because it's like
As you
one thing I
yawn.
can, it's like one thing I can do that's I feel like thoughtful that doesn't
Yeah,
require me to like go outside of my normal drive home.
right.
But normally I'm bringing a mug of coffee with me in the morning and then not leaving the job. In the summertime, I'll definitely drink like iced coffee or leftover coffee when I get home from work. But in
Mm.
the wintertime, typically not. Um, so I guess I don't drink as much coffee as I do in the summer. In the summer, I'm like, just give me as much coffee as you can. I'll drink in the call. I'll like bring iced coffee with me. I'll stop and get coffee. Um,
But you know what I think? Like, I heard this thing where it's not even about the coffee or the taste or anything, it's the companionship.
maybe.
It's like I'm dead serious. Rob's like, "What?" I'm like, it's I would leave my wife and I talked about it where it's like I started buying coffee when COVID because it was just like Starbucks wasn't even open. So I just was buying it and having it delivered to my house. But I found myself like treating myself on a Friday, like, I have coffee sitting in my fridge, it's the same exact coffee, but I'm gonna go get one because
Yeah.
like, the act of getting it and then, like, having it like, taking a ride without something in my cup holder, like, I feel it's not that I feel alone, but it's like having the coffee there is nice. It's
So
like,
is this like
I
another
can
Reno Run plug?
It
yeah,
could be.
You know, where
Starbucks.
they'll deliver your coffee.
We are working on a coffee sponsorship, and it is not Starbucks. So I will
No,
be switching my coffee.
I don't
I
I don't I don't disagree with that. I think that I don't know, it's one of those habits that at this point, I'm 36 years old and I've been drinking coffee for half my life.
Mm,
Um and so I stopped drinking when I was 23. So like
alcohol.
alcohol, I don't do drugs, so like caffeine is kind of the only sort of stimulant that I can get down with these days. So I'm sure that there's some sort of chemical addiction there too, where it's like I can get a little bit of a buzz from caffeine. So I don't know, like even thinking to stop on the way home, it's like I'll grab a coffee that's like it makes me happy.
Yeah.
Um,
Man, I got one of these nitro cold brews earlier today, and this thing just has me wide open right now. They're so much stronger than I thought they were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been probably drinking the nitro for, I don't even 3 years now.
Well, I
So
think
it's like
you're
ev
who I heard of them from. Like
maybe.
yeah, I went to Starbucks one day and I was like, "Oh, Nick gets these. Let me try one." And then
Dude, I can have like, if I have an afternoon one,
Mhm.
it would th I would
All night
I
long.
would benefit from it. No,
Yeah.
I sleep well. I would benefit from it, but my body, like, my heart would hurt. Like, my
Yeah.
my actual heart would, like, hurt. And I was like, "Man, I gotta stop doing, like, the second one."
Yeah.
But I buy them in the can now, so they're in, like, a
Okay.
little nitro can,
Yeah.
but it's a tall, not a grande, so
Mhm.
it's, like, less.
Yeah, I
But
got whatever this is,
yeah, yeah, that's the grande.
the big one.
So, but I went in there to grab coffee one day, and this la the lady I grabbed my coffee, and I see her pouring a nitro, and she you know how they yell out like either your
Mhm.
name or your order, and she's like, "Nitro with 2 shots of espresso."
Oh
I
god.
was like, "Oh
No
my god, I
thanks.
gotta see who picks this thing up." I was like, "Who this thing has so like, this is so much caffeine." I'm like, "There's no
Yeah.
way that like, if corporate knew that you were putting that on the counter right
Oh,
now,
yeah,
like,
for
they would be
sure.
like, absolutely
You could
not."
probably
Because
take that and makes like a week's worth of coffee with it.
Yeah,
dude,
it's just concentrate.
right?
Yep.
Well, yeah, they sell a cold brew concentrate in
Yep.
the grocery store, and it's like, mix it with 50/50 water, and I would mix it, and I'm like, "This is terrible," and
Yeah.
I just drank it straight.
Yeah.
Oh
'Cause I was like, it
god.
just it was so much better.
Yeah, that's a
And I
lot.
don't like I know it helps me from a caffeine perspective, but if I don't have a coffee, it's not like I crash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
same.
No
know, it's
headache or
I'm
anything
way
like that.
it's I think like that's what I mean about the companionship. I just like having a coffee. I like the act of drinking coffee and getting it. Um, and I also I have this thing where it's like if someone said, "Man, you're addicted to coffee," I would quit coffee on the spot just because I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm not allowing anyone to tell me that I'm addicted to
Yeah.
anything. Because like I just don't like I know I can have an addictive personality, but
Mhm.
I don't want anyone else to know that.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not like a coffee snob. I mean, I don't drink Dunkin' Donuts coffee or Wawa coffee. I just don't think it's good.
Is Wawa's a gas station, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
Meg's
drink.
favorite kind of coffee is gas station coffee.
Yeah,
You guys don't
I
have
don't think it's
Wawas in
good.
Boston? No? Sorry,
No,
go
but
ahead.
like I don't even like Dunkin' Donuts coffee. It just that like so if I go out, I either want to go to like I'm not a coffee snob where I want to do all these crazy types of coffee and like
Mm,
make them a certain way. I just don't want to drink weak coffee.
yeah.
So you're limited to going out. Like I guess I would in a pinch, but if I was leaving the job to go get coffee, I would find where there was like a Starbucks or like a local coffee shop
Right.
to get coffee.
Where it's brewed right.
Yeah, but like I'm not at home looking up coffee types to buy and like I'm going to do I mean we do pour over. I just feel like it's kind of the most convenient type
Mhm.
of coffee to drink, but I don't have like a fancy coffee machine and like you know, I don't seek out special types of coffee beans. But I don't want to drink crappy coffee.
Or like the milkshakes. I feel like so many like
Yeah.
you go into these coffee shops and it's like chocolate syrup, caramel syrup,
Mhm, it's too
mostly
much.
milk, 1
Yeah.
shot of espresso,
Yeah.
ice. I'm like, that is not coffee.
Yeah.
I saw some dude in Starbucks yesterday. Um and he was walking out with these like pink drinks, 4 of them.
Oh, the
And they
pinkity drinkity.
what is it?
It's that's I don't know. I've heard it called the pinkity drinkity or something like that. I think it's strawberry,
It's like a berry
like
tea, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's like a strawberry tea or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing where it's like I think I'd just go to like 7-Eleven and grab
A
like a
Slurpee.
vitamin water because it's probably the same
Yeah.
thing.
Dude, Meg, I this morning before I left, she was like, "Hey, do you mind going to grab a coffee for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." So I go to her crappy coffee store, and this lady's or this girl behind the counter is making a drink, not definitely not a coffee, and I'm like, "That literally looks like Red Bull." And I look up, and it's a Red Bull Lime Ricky,
Ugh.
and I'm like, "Who's getting that?" And there's like an older lady in front of me. It was hers, and
Really?
I'm like, "You're drinking a Red Bull Lime Ricky at whatever 7:30 in the morning?" I'm like, "What?" Like, I don't know.
The
So
funny part about coffee from a gas station place is I feel like it tastes either more like the store or the cup than
mm,
coffee. Where
mhm.
it's like I can taste the store when I drink this, or like that's how bad the coffee. Or I could taste what this cup tastes
It's
like,
like,
and I'm like, no,
"Is this from the Wawa on East 3rd?"
so weird.
Sorry to cut you off. Are you set up with a podcast mic and an arm?
Oh yeah, dude.
Is this yours?
No, no. So
Oh,
I so I live like 45 minutes outside the city, and
okay.
we have the absolute worst internet in the world. So I started texting all my buddies after I made this appointment, and I was like, "Can I borrow your office?" And one of my friends, who's another builder in town, he was like, "Yeah, man, absolutely." And then I texted him the day before yesterday, and I was like, "Hey, is this still cool if I borrow your office?" And he was like, yeah, like when do you need it?" And I was like, okay, like this probably isn't going to work out too well. Like there's a couple people in his office, and I figured it would just be loud. So there's this company called Cohatch, and
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have them up there, but it's basically like a daily shared workspace that you can rent out. So I started calling around, seeing if I could get a private room, and they all have like these private conference room spaces, but this one in the middle of Columbus, like down by campus, Ohio State's campus, has an actual podcast room.
That's
So
sick.
so I've got like this articulating arm mic in front of me. There's another one across the table, and there's like a big TV, and it's all acoustic panels, and so should
Damn,
work out pretty well.
that's way more legit than we are.
Yeah, right?
Well, it was either that or like operating on a dial-up connection out in the country. So
We've
Okay.
had a few of those.
yeah,
Yeah,
I was like,
you
I don't want to be
last
that
week,
guy.
Nick.
Yeah, me last week. Tyler and I were recording, and I'm like, I keep losing Wi-Fi. I'm gonna go get a repeater.
Yeah,
And it was like I ordered it as I hung up, and I went and picked it up. I'm like, I'm all set. And
Yeah.
he's like, wait, you got it now? I'm like, yeah. But we end up recording what Sunday night, Saturday night,
Saturday
whatever
night.
it was,
Saturday night.
Yeah.
But
I'd love to sit here and tell you that I'm like a seasoned podcaster, but this is actually my first one ever.
I think it's sick that it's just like this remote like podcast
Yeah.
booth that you can rent.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I mean, you might as well just start your own podcast.
I know. You guys should relocate to Columbus.
You should tell them that they need to paint those MDF panels.
Oh, I know. They're like wallpapered.
Are they not
with
painted?
something. No, they're like wallpapered with some kind of felt. I don't know
Oh,
what they are.
What?
Yeah,
just looks like MDF.
it does.
Oh,
Doesn't
it's
it?
funny. It looks gray to me, like a
It might
painted
be.
gray.
It might be behind there. But
That's way nicer than my podcast studio.
where's yours?
Yeah.
We need to up our studios.
Mine's in my laundry room, powder room, office combination
Hey man, at least you got
slash
internet. I guess.
slash podcast studio.
Oh, Tyler has the fastest internet.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say his picture
Upgraded
right
and
now is perfect.
upgraded and upgraded and upgraded it because he thought he wasn't getting the right connection.
Yeah, apparently I just have a dead spot in my office, so I told my wife to keep like jacking the internet up, and she
Yeah.
kept doing that. And then I was like, oh no, it just doesn't work in this one section. So I have like the ultimate gaming internet setup, and I was like, you can like, we don't need that anymore. I'm just gonna hardwire my internet in. And my wife's like, go screw yourself. I went
Yeah.
through all of that to get your internet going. Like, you're paying for it now. And I was like, all
That's
right.
funny. Yeah, we're
The
paying like
internet provider is like, does anyone know who lives in Medford, New Jersey that games like a son of a bitch?
we're paying like $300 a month for like what's basically dial up. So we're in between like service areas for like 4 different companies. So it's a nightmare. We're moving closer to 10 or later this year, but
So where are
You're
you?
near Columbus.
yeah. So Columbus is like smack dab in the middle of Ohio, and we're like 40 minutes east in Johnstown,
So where do you work primarily?
primarily in Columbus.
So you're
Mhm.
driving 40
Hike.
minutes every day.
Yeah, pretty much. Which that's coming to an end here shortly.
So give us the backstory,
Yeah.
or who you are now, and
Yeah.
we can get it.
Okay. So like start at the top, like name, like long walks on
Dude,
the
there
beach,
is no
that sort of
format.
thing, or
You can
Yeah.
we all know everyone likes long walks on the beach.
Yeah. So my name is Rob. I am a residential contractor here in Columbus, Ohio. I've owned this business now for 4.5 years. We primarily do like historic restorations, large scale renovations, additions, that sort of thing. But a lot of our work over the next 1.5 2 years is going to be new construction. So we're kind of like gradually stepping into larger scale projects as we grow. Like when I started the company 4.5 years ago, we were doing like accent walls and powder room remodels and that sort of thing. And now we're looking at, I mean, pretty large scale 7-figure projects for next year and the following. So,
And how so you went from doing those small jobs where you're working alone or with a helper?
pretty much just by myself up until about 2 years ago. And then we had a small group of subs that's slowly grown up to now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I self-perform pretty much everything. I don't know if you remember, Tyler, we actually talked like I guess it was like 4 years ago. Um, I was freaking out because I grouted a shower with some fast setting grout and
Oh,
and you were basically like, "It's okay, don't panic. Like we're gonna figure this out." Um, but yeah, no, so I like kind of just slowly grew over the last 4.5 years to be doing what we're doing now. It was pretty organic.
and what it is that was that a pretty natural progression for you, or like is that kind of typical of the market that you're in?
Um, so it seems like there are there's like a handful of kind of like owner operator small companies like me
Yeah.
here. Um, and actually, I know of two of them offhand that have kind of progressed along kind of the similar pace that we have over the last couple of years. But I would say that the majority of the companies here are going to be like larger scale general contractors that sub basically everything out. I don't think there are too many companies that are similar to us in Columbus.
And I guess is Columbus like a lot, are there a lot of older homes there that I guess looking into this, 4.5 years ago, even though you may feel like that's a very slow progression, that's fast growth. Um, is like, do you think that the market's kind of just pushing that there's a need for people with what you're doing, or is that something that you feel like you kind of made happen? Um, if you kind of follow what I'm
Yeah,
throwing at you there.
yeah. I'd say it's probably a combination of things. I recognize that we've grown pretty quick. Um, Considering just like I said, 4.5 years ago, like I was pretty pumped about the idea of doing a powder room. I mean, that powder
Yeah.
room was like 3 feet by 5 feet. It was
Mm.
nothing, and it took me like 3 weeks to finish it. Um, but now it's like um, there's enough older homes in like downtown Columbus. I mean, like we have Victorian Village and German Village, which are like historic commissioned areas of town, um, and those areas are in constant need of renovation and updating and that sort of thing. Um, so there's definitely a market for it here. Um, I wouldn't say that Columbus is necessarily saturated with contractors that are like it's their focus or it's their priority or anything along
Yeah.
those lines.
So
Um,
when you were doing that small powder room, or take it back, 4 years ago, where you're doing that, are you kind of looking ahead, thinking like where I want to be is closer to where you are today, or was it that you started doing a project and then a customer came to you and was like, "Hey, can you do this bigger project?" Like, was the growth very intentional to be doing what you're doing now, or was it just like, I did a kitchen next, and then I did a master renovation next, and then I did a first floor remodel? Was it more of a progression like that, or is this something that you kind of chased down?
a little bit of both. So, like, kind of the progression that you outlined, like going from powder room to bathroom to kitchen and kind of going on down the line, is really the way that it ended up going. Um, but I would say, like, the end of year two, I started looking around for helpers and kind of pushing things forward in terms of like trying to meet architects, trying to meet designers, get linked up with a couple other contractors in the area. Um, so I remember like middle to end of year two, I kind of set a goal where I wanted to reach out to, I was like one architect or one designer a week for the next however many weeks. I think it ended up being 5 or 6 weeks, but a lot of those architects we still work with today.
Yeah.
And it was basically just like cold calls, emails, that sort of thing, where I was like, hey, just want to introduce myself. This is what we do. These are some pictures of our work. This is what we're capable of. Um, it's worked out really well for us. I mean, one of the designers that we reached out to 2 years ago. I mean, we've done we've done 2 or 3 projects with him already. We're looking at we just started another one with him a couple months ago. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was partially organic and partially like me kind of at the helm driving the ship.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see. I know that I feel as though so many people they either push for it or they take that organic growth where it's like I'll see what falls on my lap and kind of take it from there. It's good to have a blend of the two where you're not driving and pushing for something that's outside of your capacity, but at the
Mhm.
same time you're not kind of just remaining stagnant saying I'm just whatever lands on my lap is what I'm gonna take. I think having both of them there is kind of important because it's going to keep you moving at a faster rate, but you're also not going to grow so fast that you're like, what the hell am I doing? I
Sure.
have no clue what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I think, Rob, like in our conversations that we've had, that's where I felt as though you and I are the most relatable.
Mhm.
Is that like, you had fast growth, but there was some intentionality behind it, but also very much like there were opportunities presented,
Yeah.
and you didn't shy away from them. And that's
Mhm.
where it's like, uh, I have conversations around our growth and and how fast it is, and it's like, yeah, but I was presented with opportunities, and I wasn't in a position where I felt as though the appropriate decision was to not take it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there have definitely been scenarios like, especially in the last year and a half and through COVID and all that sort of stuff, where we'll land a job, we'll get in contract, and it's like I feel pretty confident going into the sales and all that sort of stuff, and then we land the job, and then like first day we show up on site, and I'm like, oh shit, like how are we actually gonna pull this off?
But do you think
Um,
that's because of the lack of help you have?
I think so. I think it's definitely like if I had it my way, I mean, it would be kind of one or the other. Like be able to manage multiple projects with reliable subcontractors, or I would have, I mean, a team of 5 to 10 carpenters around the clock.
And
Um,
what's preventing you from taking either of those avenues?
um, so this was a lot of my so like remember we talked earlier this year
Yeah,
about the idea of me relocating to Boston.
I was gonna
Um,
get to that.
I figured. uh, that was a lot of the reason why I wanted to relocate to the Northeast, not necessarily Boston, but anyway, was I feel that like my level of expectation out of my employees is very high,
Mhm.
and I feel that there are like niche corners of the market in Columbus where people have very high expectations of quality, um, but I don't feel like by and large you can go just about anywhere in the city and grab somebody from another company and say, "Hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z. Scribe this to the floor. Scribe our apron sinks and all that sort of stuff," and they'll be able to pull it off.
Mhm.
Um, and then, like over the course of the last year, with how busy we've gotten, it's been harder and harder for me to be on site with somebody all day to a point where I can actually teach them the way that we want to do things. So it's kind of a combination of the two. And then
Yeah.
when it comes to subcontractors, it's like Columbus is kind of a unique market because yeah, it's in the Midwest and like historically speaking, Midwest has never been like a booming market, but Columbus has um Columbus has a very young demographic, but we also have a lot of there are a lot of tech companies moving into town.
Mm.
So building and renovating has just become, I mean, the whole market across the board between real estate to renovations has just gone absolutely nuts over the last couple of years. um, so for us, like it's great because there's no shortage of work, but at the same time, I mean, there's I feel like that can swing easily in the other direction. I mean, there's almost too much work.
What's your company set up right now? Like, what's the structure? How many people?
So right now it's myself and two other guys. Their names are Pat and Royal. um, Royal's a young kid we just hired on last Monday. Um, and then obviously we sub out all of our utilities, drywall, that sort of thing. The majority of what we do is almost exclusively carpentry related. So we do
Yeah.
a lot of our own framing and then trim and cabinetry.
And how did you get into that? Kind of taking it back prior to 4 years ago. Were you in the trades before you started your own business?
Yeah. So I started in construction about 14 years ago, in multiple ways. So I worked for a residential builder in Virginia. Um, up until we relocated to Ohio about 5, 6 years ago. Um, 6 years ago, there was an interim period in there where I was considering leaving um, the residential trades and kind of getting into. I wanted to be an engineer more than anything. So I was going to school for engineering, and we ended up. I ended up leaving that builder and working for a small engineering firm as a more or less a building inspector.
Yeah.
So we did structural steel inspections, concrete inspections, welding inspections, that sort of thing for the city of Charlottesville. And then when we relocated to Columbus, I was doing the same thing for another private firm, kind of going to school at the same time. And then after about a year of school here, kind of had enough, wanted to get my hands dirty again. So got back into residential and got my license, started cold calling some builders, looking for sub work. Trim was always something that I gravitated toward,
Yeah.
but
And then just took off running.
pretty much, man.
I
Yeah.
that's always one thing. I think I always had this pipe dream of relocating, and then it's like, if you relocated, would you start your own company? And I'm always, no, I wouldn't, because you don't know the market, you don't know anyone.
Mhm.
Um, was that Did that ever cross your mind? Like, I'm in a
Oh,
brand new
yeah.
market. I don't, because like that's a huge hang up for me. Where, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, right? Where it's nice to be able to think, hey, I could just go move somewhere and grab a job working for someone else, and I don't have the pressure on me, and kind of get accustomed to the space. But it doesn't seem like you gave yourself that much of an opportunity to grow any roots prior to
Yeah.
starting your own thing.
No, not at all. So I moved here with my girlfriend, now wife, and I had no connections here at all. Um, I was basically going to school full time and was like, all right, I've kind of got a glimpse of what it's going to look like to be an engineer,
Yeah.
um, and it just didn't appeal to me at all.
Did you move
So
there specifically for school or because of your girlfriend?
my girlfriend, wife, she's originally from Cleveland, Ohio,
Okay.
and I kind of put my foot down. I was like, I'm not moving to Cleveland. So,
Yeah.
so we settled in Columbus. She has a lot of family here, but yeah, no. The intention was apply to Ohio State, get an engineering degree there, and then start looking around, and ultimately end up sticking around Columbus indefinitely. But um, we, yeah, I got about a year in, and just couldn't stand the thought of it anymore. So when I started, I mean, it was kind of like sink or swim. It was like, you don't really have a choice here. I don't have any formal education outside of the couple of years that I spent at a community college.
Yeah.
Um, so it was like, kind of get back into construction. I loved being a carpenter. So it was just like, figure it out. We're going to make it work
So were you working part-time or full-time while you were in school?
full
Or
time.
full-time?
Yep.
Yeah, that's tough too, especially when you're at a bigger school, a bigger program, and you have to put those hours in to try and get your degree.
Hmm.
Um, which is I was work when I was in college. After I went back in, I was basically working 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Hmm.
If I needed to, some on the weekends, but then scheduling classes for 2 days a week, and it was just what I wanted to do. But it definitely wasn't easy. I
Yeah.
feel like I didn't enjoy work and I didn't enjoy school. But
Hmm.
if I would have had, if you were like, all right, you can only do one, I probably would have bailed on college as well.
Yeah.
What
Yeah. It
made you
just,
what made you want to stop going to school?
um, I'm really not sure, man. I never actually got into Ohio State. Not that I never applied. I started going to the community college here, but I'm not sure. I was a year and change in, and honestly, my wife could probably offer a better perspective on this at this point than I could. But I I just really missed the trades, man. I really missed carpentry. I missed I don't know. I missed swinging a hammer in the middle of summer,
I
going
hated
home tired.
engineering courses.
I hated engineering school. Yeah.
It's funny because like you think that it's a natural I don't know, the engineering mindset, I think you like things a certain way.
Hmm.
You're very particular, you're detail oriented. It does seem like a very natural progression into construction, but it's
Hmm.
hard to separate that engineering mentality from what life in the field actually looks like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I kind of figured that out pretty quick when it came to doing building inspections because it's like, a lot of what we were doing was like, so one of the first jobs that I had when we were here um, was a post tension garage and like a big garage deck, parking garage. So we're 10 stories up looking at post tension cable installations and that sort of thing. And on the plan, it looks beautiful, and it looks like an Excel spreadsheet, and there's all these pretty lines going perpendicular to each other, and then you get out on site and it's just absolute chaos. And I mean, it's, guys are swinging hammers like a foot from your head, and like doing all their forming and slinging cables, and it was just yeah, I mean, the difference is definitely there.
Yeah, for sure. Um, excuse me. Um, so Nick, you guys were kind of talking about earlier that you potentially were still looking into considering relocating again, or is that something at this point that you're too far established to try and make another change?
Well, this was like less than 6 months ago, right?
Yeah, I think it was when was JLC?
August.
So it was in August.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I mean, um, at this point, I don't know. Nick had some confounding wisdom to drop on me during our consultation call a couple months ago, and I just don't think
Well,
that.
that went the opposite way as I planned.
Yeah, yeah, no
Well,
kidding.
no, let's. I mean, you know, I'd love to rehab this conversation because I think that I think we went to that Irish place that we went for lunch
Yeah,
with Ryan,
Oh yeah.
the same place. Um, but you know, because we all struggle. Like the reason that, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but like the
mhm,
reason that you even brought the conversation up was because you were kind of tired and getting frustrated, and a lot of it revolved around, you know, the the level of detail and the level of care that you put into it and your level of expectation out of people, and you felt as though you were being let down on a continual basis, which
yeah,
is what you just kind of alluded to a couple minutes ago. And so like dig into like let's dig into the specifics of that, and then I'd love to then kind of bring it back to like, all right, well, after we did talk, what of what I said made you think differently about that?
sure. Um, so I would say that a lot of this is driven by the market. Like I mentioned before, like looking around at the architecture and the design, and just like on your guys' Instagram and all of your marketing material, it's like there's a level of expectation in your market of high quality work, um, and I feel like I said before, is like the Midwest has never been one of those areas where we're like leading the pack in terms of quality of work, in terms of
Mm.
building science, in terms of general building practice. I mean, our codes out here are evident of that. So like we I don't know, like I talk to my suppliers about like doing zip R, and
Mhm.
none of them have any idea what it is, and I'm like trying to build these renovations and or trying to do these additions with zip R panels, and they're like, well, we can't get that, and it's going to be 6 months till you can get it because you're the only guy here in Ohio that's actually asking about it.
You guys are farmers, not builders. That's the
Basically, if you want
problem.
corn, man, come to Ohio. But
Am I like, maybe I'm completely oblivious, but like it, that doesn't sound right. Like I know, listen, I know that the Northeast is leading the pack,
yeah,
as you say, or like, we have, we are, um, we have a lot going on. We have all the products. Like, no, there's never an issue getting product. It's like I talk to guys out in, the West Coast, and they're just getting zip, and it's like
mhm.
I understand that, but am I wrong in thinking that Huber would want, like, if Rob you want that stuff and you reached out to Huber, like, they would find a way to get it there, wouldn't they?
Oh, no, I'm sure they would. These are more or less my local suppliers in terms of, like, we work with Builders First Source.
Totally understood.
Yeah.
And you're saying, like, the guy at like, is it the guy at the counter that doesn't know it, so he's not putting the effort into getting it? Or is it, like, the guy that owns the company is saying, like, "Oh, listen, I can order it, but it's 6 months." Like, the 6-month thing is what I don't understand. It's like,
Mhm.
why is it 6 months?
Yeah. No, I don't honestly know.
Because I
But
feel
I
like
would
you could literally order the stuff off HomeDepot.com and have the
yeah.
stuff show up.
Well, I think a lot of it for, like, these smaller lumber yards, like Builders First Source, is that they're waiting for some degree of demand before they stock an item, and if there's
Right,
only
but
one.
but it doesn't need to be stocked,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, you're
Unless I
right.
mean, unless you're framing walls and you're going to pick it up that day and you're like, "Hey, do
Mhm.
you have any zip bar?" And they're like, no."
Yeah.
Like, I understand that, but it's like, "Hey, I'm gonna be doing an addition in 2
A
months
year.
and"
Yeah.
yeah, whatever, and it's like, "I'd love to use zip bar on it. Can I order this stuff now?"
Yeah. I
I
mean, I've inquired about it 2 or 3 times from him, and he hasn't even gotten me pricing on it yet.
Yeah, I think so often that any times that it's a product that they're not used to, that they have to put extra legwork into figuring out, what that product is, how to go about ordering it, what else you'd need for it. It's almost like, you know what, I can go to this guy over here who just wants the regular old
mm,
OSB and
Mhm.
sell them that and some Tyvek, and like it's almost like the juice isn't worth the squeeze for them, where it's like
Mhm.
I can just make the same amount of money doing way less effort than trying to sort this out.
right.
And I think that, if that's just kind of the way that the market is, a lot of times it's hard to change those guys and girls unless you have somebody that you're super close with, super tight with, that'll put in that extra legwork for you. But I feel like it just, then they have to have the conversation with the person who's purchasing and what is this stuff, and it's almost like they just rather sell you the stuff that they're used to selling.
Yeah, I guess the biggest hang up for me is, like, you've already established the relationship with the provider in general. It's not like
Mm.
Huber isn't in Columbus.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the premier builders have bumped to at least zip panels, 7/16 regular old zip, but, I mean.
You're saying you've developed the relationship with the sales guy,
Mhm, mhm.
right? And you're
Well, no, no,
giving him
no.
the
So,
With
my
Huber.
sales guy has a relationship with Huber. It's like,
yeah.
we were already ordering product from them in the first place. We're already getting half-inch and 7/16. It's like, what's the
Right, so
difference
what
between.
oh, yeah, so yeah, that you're on yeah.
Yeah,
Like, you're asking, like, what's you just add an R to the end of that
right,
and ask him to ship it.
right,
S-
exactly.
So when you're looking at from the outside in, looking at New England, are you seeing that opportunity as a more discerning customer that's kind of driving that market?
I guess I see it as kind of a combination of things. Well, so, like, I know in Mass specifically, you guys have, um, like, some energy efficiency, incentives from the state. Um, and, like, there's a solar incentive that was recently rolled out in the state of Ohio, but, um, there's not. I guess I just don't feel like it's commonplace enough to the point where people are adopting those building techniques. But then again, like, from the outside looking in, I mean, New England specifically has longstanding been, like, just like an epicenter for architecture and design.
Mhm.
I mean, you drive around the city of Boston, it's just like Boston is gorgeous. And then, like, you go just about any city in the Midwest, and I don't really feel like you're going to pick up on the same thing. And I also, like, I want to take a stance. It's like, I don't dislike the Midwest. I don't want to
Mm.
give everybody the impression that I'm like, oh, like, Columbus sucks, move to Boston. But Columbus is a
Yeah,
great
I
city.
just, like I hear I've never been to Columbus, so I can't say whether I like it or not, but I assume I would. Um, but the whole mindset that, you know, Boston is the epicenter that and it makes it easier to sell higher quality work, and it's just like I I don't agree with it. I feel as though, we are still challenged the same way. And again, like, obviously I have no experience. Maybe everyone in the Midwest is saying you're an idiot, Nick, like you have no idea what you're talking about. which is fine. But like my view on it is that we still deal with, there's constant shit being built. There's constant, poor quality. We're still battling, in the marketplace, not specifically NS builders, but, people that are in this industry are still competing and fighting for lowest price, and,
Mhm.
and figuring out ways to do it cheaper. And it's like a lot of quality is driven because of the internal, I'm going to steal Tyler's word, ethos of our company. And, and Tyler, I feel like you're a prime example of someone that lives in a market that doesn't necessarily ooze architecture and demand for high quality. And but you have chosen that this is the product I am going to put out. And at least outside looking in, like over the last few years, you've been able to align yourself with the clientele that at least values it.
Yeah, and
And
I think that, even looking at Boston and New England, it there seems to be a higher density of those type of jobs, but I don't know if that makes it any easier or better. I think that it just depends on how you formulate your business, because there's those pockets everywhere. If you go into any city or the suburbs of any city, where it was a hub of business back in the day, like the people built houses outside of there. There's always those type of jobs in those houses. But, if you're looking to run a massive company and you're in an area that doesn't have that many or those type of opportunities, yeah, you're going to limit yourself. But if you find a way to structure your business to kind of be able to um, execute the way that you want, and also you're not looking to create a demand more than what's there, I think that you could be successful. Like, it depends on what you want for your business, Rob. If you want to grow a huge business and the market's not there to sustain a massive business, yeah, maybe it makes sense to move to a place where there is a larger volume of those type of projects. But I don't know if that's going to make you happier, or that's just going to frustrate you more. You kind of have to, you're still early in business too, to try and sort out what you think you may want may not actually be that.
Mhm. And that was honestly the conversation that Nick and I had. He was like, "If you feel like you're banging your head against the wall there," he's like, "you're just gonna move to another market and feel like you're banging the head against the wall there."
yeah,
So, I mean, it's either
because
here or
like,
Columbus.
dude, it's like I went out
There.
to Newport Beach, and it was able to hang out with Patterson and see all the homes that are being built out there and the price point and the level of quality. And it's just like, I'm like, I should live here.
Yeah.
Like, I should live here.
Yeah.
But then you have a real conversation. It's like, it's no different.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
same crap.
It's the same exact thing. It's like, okay, maybe that house that is in Boston for 8 million, it's 20 million there. You're still dealing with the same issues, the same people demanding unrealistic expectations and cost. Like it's not, that's, I guess that's where my argument comes from. Like Midwest, the middle of nowhere, Northeast, West Coast, like wherever these places are, I think that it's up to you to find out like truly what you want to be putting out,
Mhm.
and understanding that, there's not going to necessarily be a specific client being like, "Hey, I'm looking for a Rob.
Mhm.
Anyone here named Rob that can do this?" It's going to be, "Hey, I like what he does. Hey, I like what he does. Hey," and then all of a sudden it's going to be like your marketplace is being defined by the consistent nature of what you produce.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden it's like, the few discerning clients in your area that, especially with tech coming in, like
Mhm.
I feel like you just went from, a market that, has no demand to a market that's going to have huge demand,
Yeah.
and I think cost will continue to be an issue as it always will. But I think tech brings youth, and youth brings new architecture, and new architecture
Mhm.
brings modern, and modern
Mhm.
brings difficulty and complexity. And,
Mhm.
and you'll have to weed out the bullshit. But at that, you carve out your place. And like I said with Tyler, it's like I feel like Tyler has done this where, you know, the majority of people that probably see Tyler's work don't know where he is in New Jersey, or if he where he is in the United States.
Hmm.
But they understand exactly what kind of quality he puts out on a consistent basis. And I know for a fact that Tyler's probably been offered, you know, I'm saying fact and probably, but I'm sure that he's been offered at least a dozen opportunities to move anywhere in the U.S. to come do finish work and paint work and you know, just come be Tyler for me
Yeah.
in any market. And you know, but it's because of that consistency where
Hmm.
it's like, you know, going back to something you guys were talking about earlier, if you relocated to Boston, if Tyler relocated to somewhere else in a new market, you know, going to work for someone is probably, you know, the easier route because like you can kind of get in and have the less headaches. But it would probably be short-lived. And if it was lived at all, where it's like you just get into that marketplace and like, screw it, I've done this.
Hmm.
I've already proved my worth. And not to mention the fact that, you know, marketing and media these days, it's like if I, you know, I threw around casually that I was relocating to South Carolina last year. And it's like I threw that out like just kind of to a few people, and you know, and threw it up on social media a little bit about like opening maybe a second office. And I was like immediately like, hey, if you relocate to South Carolina, I want you to do my house.
Hmm.
And it's like we all have that opportunity. You know, it's like we have this opportunity to, you know, announce to a huge audience that, hey, you know, I have decided to close shop in Ohio and I'm relocating to, you know, Hudson Valley, New York.
Hmm.
And and I'm looking for a client, you know, a client to start my venture with.
Yeah, honestly, man, like it was our conversation where you were like, "You're going to be banging your head against the wall here." That owns a or adding on to that conversation, you said something along the lines of, um, like, if you feel like there's nobody in my market that's specifically doing like the net zero and the passive house construction that I want to be doing, or that we're kind of aiming toward, then set the trail. Be that guy
Mm.
that starts that work here. And it was after leaving that conversation, I talked to my wife about it and kind of put the idea of relocating to bed after that.
Yeah.
You shot
What
yourself
it
in the foot, man. You could have had a great project manager.
Yeah. Well, I know how to undo a conversation.
what is so obviously that's a frustration for you in your current state of business and kind of your market, and hopefully you can make some changes moving forward. What are I feel a large point of contention with our industry can be managing our customers, that experience with our customers. What's your experience like with your customers? What's that relationship like with your customers, and kind of the setup of your business?
Hmm. So we don't take on too many projects at a time, um, with the exception of this year. So typically we only have like 2 to 3 projects going simultaneously. They're almost always staffed just about every day, 5, 6 days a week. So in terms of communication, it's typically email, text, phone calls, that sort of thing. We've been looking at Builder Trend, and I used it for about 3 months last year. Um, but it was like in the middle of everything else going on, it was just one of those things that was pretty hard to onboard. We actually have a local Builder Trend office, but yeah, I mean, most of our communication is via text, email, phone call, that sort of
And
thing. And
then
I'd
as
say,
far as go ahead.
no, I was going to say, like, by and large, I don't think that there is one client that we've worked with in the last 4.5 years that I would say is a risk to our reputation or anything along those lines. For the most part, we get along great with our clients. And
So when I was reading an Instagram post of yours where,
oh,
you said that you look to be a professional, partially an act, and I guess you know you're on the job a lot. You have a couple people working for you. I like to see what that relationship between you and customer looks like. I know that a lot of times when I first meet a customer, you are professional. I think a little bit of myself comes out.
Mhm.
I do want to sell something that's accurate of who I am. But I think that, once the you get in, you start working, and everyone starts to become a little more comfortable, I can
Mhm.
really let loose and be myself and kind of start busting balls and everything
Yeah.
else. But I have a fairly there's certain customers I know that want the professionalism all the time. And
Yeah.
then, there's a lot of customers that kind of like the less formal rapport and kind of interaction. And what does that look like for you? You said, that you are sarcastic and a goofball, I think is what you said. So what does that customer relationship look like with you on a more personal level?
Yeah. So I would say, kind of like teeing off what you said, it oftentimes comes back to the specific client. Um, Here lately, we've been working with a lot of younger couples, um, younger families. I mean, most of our clients over the course of the next year are going to be within 10 years of my own age. So, like from a social perspective, I feel like we're a little more relatable, get along a little better. Not that I don't get along with any clients, but um, just that relatability allows me to kind of be like a little more myself, be a little bit goofy on site, and kind of, like you said, just bust balls. But we're working with an older couple right now, and they expect professionalism, and that's exactly what they get. I mean, we like to joke around, and it can be a stressful environment sometimes. So we try to make it less stressful, just socially speaking. But um, for the most part, I mean, you're never going to catch anybody on one of my jobs that's I don't know, like smoking in somebody's driveway and flicking butts in their front yard and that sort of
Mm.
thing. So like we do we hold everybody on our job sites to a very high expectation in terms of like just client facing etiquette. Um, you know, uh, like 5 years ago, I linked up with Zach Detmore and I actually drove out to New Jersey to hang out with him for a day and just kind of BS with him a little bit about like what I like, kind of like general business practice. And I actually learned a lot more from him than I like at the moment realized. Um, because I mean, it was like not using anything that belongs to the client. Like if there's a piece of our trash and that blew out of the dumpster and it's sitting right next to their trash can, it's like, don't just pick it up and throw it in their trash can. Pick it up, bring it back in our dumpster. Like little things like that. Like our employees and subcontractors don't accept gifts or gratuities from clients. No bottled waters or cookies or any of that kind of stuff. So like
No
the
cookies?
no cookies, man.
Cookies? For
Yeah, I
real?
I
So
made them.
if somebody makes you cookies, you're turning them away.
If they made them specifically for me or for one of my guys, then um, you know,
What sort of slave driver are
Wait,
you?
hold on. You didn't finish that. If they made them specifically for you,
You
you'd eat
better
them,
take
right?
those cookies. I feel like it's worse to not take them. You take them and throw them out afterwards. You got to take the cookies.
yeah. So like 2 weeks
Yeah, you're
ago,
not. You don't take them off like a random ass plate.
yeah. So like, well, no. So basically, what's happened in the past is, um, client makes uh, batch of cookies and says, "Hey guys, help yourselves," sort of thing. But they're intended for the family, and oh, if the contractor takes one, it's not a big deal, sort of thing. And it's like in that scenario, the answer is no, man. It's like you can't have their cookies.
Yeah.
But in like I had a client just a couple of weeks ago, right before Christmas. I went over to do like a little walkthrough because we took the week between Christmas and New Year's off, and um, I did a little walkthrough just to make sure the house was cleaned up and ready for them to kind of enjoy the holiday. Um, and while we were on our walkthrough, the client said, "Hey, here, I made these for you." Gave me a box of cookies, and it's like, shit, man, I can't turn these down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's totally different.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
funny because I was at a customer's house. It's a return customer I've worked for as long as I've been in business. And I was over there maybe a month. I mean, it was before Christmas, but there was still Halloween candy like around the house. And I'm like, yo, I'm eating this Halloween candy. And then, like, it's just sitting there. And I'm like, oh, it looks so good. So I'm texting my customer. I'm like, thanks for all the extra Halloween candy. And they're like, that, at that point they have kids. They've been trying to get rid of it for so
Right.
long. And I'm just texting. I'm like, I'm at your house eating your Halloween candy, so you're welcome. And it's fun to have that relationship with customers because
Oh yeah,
if it's just straight business, like I feel like Nick's just business,
yeah.
like
No, I
just
That's
mean,
what Sean
super.
says.
Yeah, dude. I feel like Nick's business, like very professional. I I like my work to be professional, right? Like I want my job site to be professional. I want the detail to be professional, the materials, the methods. Like I want you, if you were to take me out of the job site and just walk my job, you're like, this dude's a professional. But then like I don't feel as though I need to be like this kind of uptight, like super by the book professional person. Like I don't know. I'm just not like that in life. So I kind of like to keep I want to be who I am on the job, and like I take my work very seriously, but I'd always don't take myself seriously.
Mhm.
So I
no,
think that
I
that's
see.
where I kind of set the tone.
I think you got me wrong there, where it's like on paper, totally by the book. Don't use the bathrooms. Don't do that. Like we got the rules outlined. But
Mhm.
when I'm on site, I think that as like an owner or leader, like having that kind of as you put it, like goofballness or whatever, or like
Mhm.
not taking yourself too seriously and having fun at it, I think is actually super important
Yeah.
for a lot of reasons where it's like Tyler, like being like having the job being so wound tight, it's not a comfortable environment and everyone gets, it's not fun. And
Yeah.
like there has to be this constant reminder that hey, this can be fun. We do this because we enjoy it, not because we're straight laced. Like um but I wanted to tell a story about I was like probably 15 and I was building a shed for this family and they had this freezer in the garage and it was in the summer. I feel like I may have told this story before, but I'm telling it again. And they had, you remember like freeze pops? Not remember, but like I know
Yeah.
they still have 'em. Freeze pops, but they would sell them in like the 12-inch by 12-inch by like 6-inch carton.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like it was like 1,000 of them.
Mhm.
And I remember the client being like, "Hey, help yourself. I know it's hot out." And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much." I ate the whole box.
No.
Yeah,
Seriously?
the whole
Dude,
box.
how?
It was
That's
just like
like
every day I
so
was
much
there. It
dye
was
and
just like
coloring.
every
Okay.
like I'd finish one and I'd be like, I'm gonna get another one."
It's like a gallon of sugar water.
Did you
It was
replace it?
no. I mean, they like I knew them like on a personal level, but still, it like I'll never forget. Like I remember finishing the box and being like, "Man, I don't think that's what she meant. Like, is to help myself." But like it was. I mean, that job was. I'll never forget. Like they would. The husband and wife would both text me during, or actually, I think we had text back then, or maybe call me like, "Hey, I'm stopping for lunch on the way home. I got you something," and they wouldn't communicate with each other. So like they'd show up with like McDonald's and a full pizza. And just like
Yeah.
every day, I'm just like I'm this job. I'm staying on this job
And Nick gained 20 pounds that summer.
probably. But another kind of related story talking about like taking something you're not supposed to. But I used when I worked for the developer, we were doing this window replacement, and one of the glazers was talking to me because that was actually something that's where I learned it is like we were in these finished homes and we were replacing the windows on this high rise, and my job was to like make sure all the personal belongings got moved, protected, put back, and like obviously no one took anything. And that was never an issue, but I remember there was candy on in one of the homes, and I had said something, to one of the glazers, and he's like, "I'll never eat something like at someone's home ever again." He's like, "I made that mistake once," and I was like, "What happened?" He's like, "Dude, we were on this job, and there was this bowl of peanuts, and I kept eating the peanuts, and we're working on the windows." And the lady came home at the end of the day, and he was like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I ate a bunch of those peanuts in that dish." And she goes, "Oh, that's okay. That's the peanut from the inside of a peanut M&M. I don't have any teeth, so I can't
Oh,
chew them, so I
no.
would suck the
That's
chocolate
disgusting.
off them."
No.
And I'm looking at I'm like, "Tony,
I don't
this is
That's
a"
believe it.
disgusting.
I was like, Tony, this is a lie, right?" And he's like, "I swear to God." I'm like, That is
Dude,
foul.
serious?
That's
That's a
repulsive.
real story?
Swear, like, I don't know if he
You
made it
must
up,
suck
but
those things clean.
every time I have peanut M&Ms now, I just sit
It's
there and
like,
I'm just like,
"Tony,
imagine if I
that's
just
not
took
peanut butter, I just mushed them together with my gums."
Mhm. Oh,
Oh.
God. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
customers who are like, "Oh, take what you want from the fridge." Like, "No, I'm not going into your fridge." "Oh, you can use our kitchen or microwave." "No, I'm not doing that." But, I will, like, customers I work for forever that I have established that relationship, like, the one customer, I'll, like, go grab a drink out of their fridge in their garage because I know that's where they keep all the drinks for their kids, and I'll be like, "Thanks for the drink," and, like, send them a picture of me drinking it. Um, but I would never just, like, and that also wouldn't be, like, the first time that I worked for a customer. It's the same thing, like, I wouldn't want my employees doing that. So I do try and set that level of care, but I think that I do have somewhat of a unique relationship with a lot of my customers as well because I'm there every single day.
Right.
So, like, if you're doing a renovation, I'm basically your child for however long because I'm like, even the kids are there. And by like, when I first meet the kids, they're always super shy and I'm like feeling them out. And then by the end of the time I'm working, they're usually asking me for a TRG like shirt or hoodie.
Mhm.
And then I'm just like busting their balls the whole time, just like saying stuff to them. But I don't know. That does keep it fun for me. And like I said, I like to keep the work as professional as possible. But like, I don't want to be a stick in the mud while I'm on a
Yeah.
job site the whole
No.
time. It's just not fun.
Yeah. I had a guy working for me earlier this year accepted a beer from a client at like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, like while we were on
Damn.
site. It was
Was he
just
done with work though?
no, it was his birthday, and he just figured it would be okay. But I guess I hadn't had the conversation with him yet of like not
Yeah.
accepting gratuities from clients. But
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, I remember when we worked for, when I worked for the developer, like, that was a huge thing they talked about all the time. Don't accept
mhm,
gifts, don't accept like, they always talked about
yeah,
tickets, and I would literally get an email once a week like, "Hey, anyone want Bruin tickets
it's like
or
yes,
Celtics tickets?" I would call them. I was like, "Hey, I can't put it in an email, but I'll grab those. Will you just not let anyone know?"
just don't
I think you're
RSVP
But
just
with
not
me. No.
supposed to do that as a building inspector. You could do it as a contractor.
oh my god, I offered a building inspector I offered her like like a one of my Yetis or something,
Sounds
and
like
she looked at
bribery.
me and she's like, "You bribing me?" I'm
Yeah,
like, "No, I'm offering you a coffee. Forget it,
yeah.
forget it."
Yeah.
I'm marketing.
But
It's
yeah,
engraved.
all right. I just wanted this to sit on your countertop so that everyone knows who your favorite builder is.
Exactly.
Um, I, yeah, I mean the the thing with the alcohol, like we have it in our handbook, and everyone always like brings it up if we have a beer after work or something,
Yeah,
where it's like the moment if you have a beer or the moment you have alcohol, you're automatically clocked out,
yeah.
and
Yeah, I
it's
like
just
that
like
policy, honestly. Like, it's never been an issue
yeah,
up until earlier this year, and it's never been an issue since, but it,
yeah, and it's like whether like
And you're
in
not allowed to clock back in.
right.
right exactly.
That's
Oh,
the
It's like
dang.
hey,
caveat.
I'm
Like,
done with
I'm
my
leaving for lunch. I'm grabbing a beer. Clock
I'm
me
here
out.
I'm
Yeah.
here yeah, I'm done with my beer.
Yeah.
I
I'm
can I clock
back.
back in?
I'm
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, I don't like I think that, it's the same way with contracts. I think that, these handbook the rules in the handbook or just company policy, it's like it's in my opinion, it's really important to make sure that you are straight-laced in writing.
Yeah,
So like put those policies in place, make sure everyone knows what they are, like they understand what the rules are with client interaction. And then, should he accept a beer after work from a client? Like, it's got to, maybe that's a case by case where it's like, if it's something that you're really against, you're really against it. Or like, maybe he's like, hey, I heard it's your birthday. Here's a $10 gift card to Dunkin' Donuts.
yeah,
It's like, it's like, does it really make sense to be like, handbook
yeah,
says no, like
yeah.
do not take that. It's like at that point, it's like you're being almost being rude,
Mhm.
where it's like the guy went out of his way to get a $10 gift card, or he's had this $10 gift card in his desk
Yeah,
for 3 years and he
in his
just
junk
wants
drawer.
someone to
Yeah.
use it,
Yeah,
you know? And I
yeah,
think that that's the same, like I said, with contracts, it's like in contract, we're rigid as hell.
Yeah.
But, when it comes to the human interaction, it's like, yeah, if you're like, our net pay on our contract is like 3 to 5 days or something like that.
Mhm.
But it's like if I'm not gonna kick them with a late fee when it's 4 days or six
Yeah.
days or 7 days. It's like, it's just so we have it in writing as what our process should be.
Yeah. It's
And then
cover
when
your ass.
things yeah, and then when things veer off that, that becomes a case by case human decision.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
have
think
I have this one customer who makes like every time we work there, just makes she's a stay at home mom. She has one kid, and she just like always makes us food while we're there. Cookies. The one time we were working, she brought in homemade like trail mix or Chex mix that was still warm. And
oh
I was
god.
like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. Then the rule is don't ask for more.
Mhm. Yeah, I think honestly with his in that situation, it was just kind of startling to walk around the corner and see him at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of a workday drinking a beer. I was like, but that kind of tees up a good question. It's like, at what point did you think that it was necessary to write an employee handbook? So, like, how many employees does it take to be like, okay,
It's
in your
not my
handbook?
it's what it was is I kept getting questions and
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you like, hey, what's the rule with parking tickets? It's like, what do you
Yeah.
mean what the rule is? Like, what's the rule? They're like, well, who pays them? I'm like, what was the ticket for? Parking in a handicapped spot? I'm like, I'm
Oh,
not
well,
paying
you pay
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your job.
It's like parking in front of a hydrant. Why would I pay that? He's like, well,
Yeah.
I didn't have anywhere else to park. It's like,
Yeah.
but that was because you
Well, it wouldn't
didn't
have been there if not
like
for you.
yeah, I mean, I'm just like I'm super confused where it's like, well, over the meter listing and I didn't want to move because I'm like, yeah, that's on us. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
you moving the van every 2 hours.
Yeah.
But if you're putting the van at risk to, like because you know what I'm getting at. But like
Yeah.
when we started having these questions come up over and over and over. It's like, hey, what's the policy with sick time? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, we have vacation time, but we don't have sick time. It's like, no, we have PTO, which
Yeah.
covers both. It's like, oh, so we don't have vacation and sick. It's like, you do. It's called PTO,
Yeah.
and it's both.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
paid
I
time
think
off. I
that
don't care what you do.
yeah, and so ultimately, like to answer that question, once we started hiring people and people just want a resource to make sure that they're going about it the right way.
Mhm.
Where it's like in our handbook, it's like absolutely no driving if you've drank any alcohol.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's a scenario where we might go and have a beer after work and debrief after a job, and it's like, were they going to leave the van in the parking lot? Like they have to be a decent human being and make a smart decision that they're not
Right.
going to overserve themselves. Um, and and vacation. I bring up vacation too because we had like at one point it was just what freedom policy, meaning like take whatever time you want.
Mhm.
And and I thought that that was a super smart thing. Like, hey, just take whatever time you want. I found that no one was taking time.
Yeah.
And it was like everyone's like, I would just rather know how many hours I'm supposed to use
Mhm.
than guess, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna guess low.
The company my wife works for has an unlimited PTO policy, and it appears like to be a similar situation. It's
Yeah,
like,
like they feel bad. Like they're like, I don't know what
yeah,
is considered, okay by like what are they budgeting for?
right.
And it actually like it's a really smart move for a company because it's like, let's just do freedom because then they'll just feel so bad that they won't take any time off. But it looks really good when we give them an offer that they get to take whatever they want.
Yeah.
And like and I remember the conversation coming up in the beginning is like, well, what if they take advantage of it? It's
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? Well, what if they take like, 4 months off? It's like, then they don't want to be here.
Right.
So
Right.
like,
Exactly.
if they don't want to be here, then like they would get fired based on that,
Right.
not based on the fact that they decided to take 4 months. If they came to me and said, hey, I'm going to take 4 months off, I've put everything into place to make sure that the job is going to roll, or I'd like to, I'd like to take 4 months because of X, like, and we have a conversation about it and it makes sense, then
Hmm.
hey, like,
Yeah.
all right, let's figure that out. Like,
Yeah.
see, like, if the company can afford it and you've put the structure in place to support your sabbatical, like,
Mhm.
I don't know, like, I'm not the one to immediately shut that down. I'm way more interested in hearing, like, why someone thinks that might be appropriate. And I think
Yeah.
that you're a guy drinking the beer, that would have been a great conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I know we never talked about accepting alcohol at work or drinking alcohol, like, but can I just, like, get your understanding of, like, why you thought that was appropriate at 2:30 in the afternoon?"
Yeah.
I mean,
And
there's
Yeah.
also a
No.
difference between like somebody of age drinking a beer and somebody like beer bonging a beer at 2 in the afternoon when you walk around the
Yeah.
corner.
Yeah. I was glad to see he was just sipping it. I think it was like a Yingling or something. I was like, all right, like if it's gonna be if you're gonna be drinking a beer at work, at least you're not like
I like how you just, like, made it okay because it was a Yingling.
yeah, no, I mean like he wasn't all like
It's like,
bend
"That
the
was a
knee
double
chuckling.
IPA,
It
bro."
wasn't
Yeah.
like a natty ice.
Right. Yeah.
And he was
No,
Uh,
Yingling's
like
fine. Coors Light.
shotgunning.
Yeah, I draw the line at Coors Light. Um, but no, yeah, it was a conversation. I was like, hey, dude, let's not do that. Let's not make a habit of
and what
drinking
was
at
the
work.
how'd that conversation go?
It's basically just like, yeah, that's fair,
Yeah,
and that was the end of it. Yeah,
right.
but not something that I would think that I would have to put in the handbook. But again, I mean, it's just like
But
contracts.
that's a thing,
Kind of.
it's there's so much that is open to interpretation
Oh yeah,
where it's like like, you can't how do you fault someone for anything else?
sure.
This is why I think it's so important to go and work for someone or work for a
Mhm.
lot of people, because this is the type of stuff that if you've only worked for one person before and say that person doesn't have these rules and these standards in place. And I mean, I even know, working for a family construction company growing up, and had I not kind of gotten my feet wet with other people, um, I would have had no clue about site protection, or no clue, that you can't take this from a customer's refrigerator, just because those standards, like, those aren't everyone's standards, and you had to learn that from someone. And if you're only getting the experience of working from one person, you may not really know what's right and what's wrong. That's just your reality.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Like, I think, um it's funny to look back on things that I thought were so normal, but it's all those little things, don't use somebody else's vacuum, respect
Hmm.
their property, don't go in the refrigerator, don't use their kitchen, um, all that stuff where, like, I don't, it's not even, you can't even say it's just, hey, we work in a different market now. We have different customers now. Like, those should just be standards that aren't everyone else's standards. I remember working for a plumber when I first went into business, and he was a referral from a friend, and I started doing a bunch of sub work for him. And it definitely wasn't my customer base, but the pay was good. He Like, everyone was always thrilled with the work that I did, so it was easy, it was fast work. It wasn't hyper detailed, so it was just like moneymaker work for me. It was a good fill in while I didn't have the full log of work of my own customers. But the stuff that he would get away with, and then I'd come in and I'd be setting up for the job. He's like, "Oh, you don't need that. You don't need that." Like, I would vacuum my way out of the job from, like, the
Hmm.
bathroom down to the front door. And I remember one customer asking me if I replaced their padding under their carpet because it was, like, so fluffy now. And I'm like, "Nah, I just vacuumed your carpet probably for the first time in, like, 3 years." Um, but it just, like, opened my eyes to what different people's standards were. And it wasn't even about, like, charging correctly or not. The guy was charging plenty of money, but I was like, once I got to the point where I had enough work on my own to sustain, and I got, like, my van lettered and all that stuff, I was like, "Yo, I can't work for you anymore. Like, I
Yeah.
don't I don't wanna be a part of this. Like, I don't want this to be my name and my brand."
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I look back on those jobs, though, like, it's a shame, because it was kinda when I first started my business. And like I said, one of my buddies was working for him as, like, an apprentice, and I was just too serious, and I was trying to establish myself and just wanted things to be a certain way. And looking back on it, those jobs, some of them were, it was almost comical, but it could have been like some of the most fun I had in business looking back on it because it's so funny. But when you're in it, it was just frustrating.
Mhm.
Like now my jobs, like the stakes are so high and the customers are so fussy because like that's what I want, that it doesn't leave that much room to kind of get in there and bang some work out and get paid for it and the people to be happy. And I feel like it's a different market that I work in now, but it was a whole lot of fun doing that when I was younger.
Well, it'll be so much easier if you just set the bar a little lower.
I know, I
I
know.
mean,
Well, I mean, I think that's, that's the slippery slope to mediocrity,
yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
it's everyone, like, I feel like so many people are like, dude, if you just did this easier or like made it easier on you, you'd make so much more money. Or it's like you talk to the guys banging out, simple boxes. It's like, oh yeah, I
Yeah,
make a ton of money.
yeah,
And, there, money is an interesting topic. I think in this industry, and especially for me recently, because the more I don't want to sound like I study money, but like the more I think about how
you a day
I
trader, Nick?
personally I wish. Actually, I don't know why I said I wish. I have no idea. No, I don't wish. I feel like I couldn't handle that
On a
kind of.
side note, do you know that a lot of floor guys do day trading while they're sanding?
I did not know
I
that.
didn't know
Yeah.
That's interesting. Um, that's very interesting.
Sorry. I mean, well, actually, all right. I haven't used that many, but like,
Fact check.
dude, I
yeah,
swear to
but
God, my
like,
floor guy has a new truck every like 6 months.
dude, my floor guy, I'll walk in. I don't use him anymore, but I told another floor guy about this. He's like, "Oh yeah, they'll do that a lot." Like sets his phone up on his either sander or buffer, and while
Yeah.
he's buffing, he's just day trading the whole time
Well,
because it's like mindless work for them.
does
That's
Ram
crazy.
Mount make a mount for
They might
Probably.
now.
Hummel Hummel Sanders?
But, so, like, my mindset around, like, building wealth personally, and, like, as I have conversation with my team and, how, everyone wants to make more money. It's
Yeah.
like, no matter how much money, you pay someone, it's like they could be over market value. They could be making, you could give them a $5 raise. You can
Mhm.
double their salary. It still doesn't net them wealth.
No, no,
Like,
absolutely
and
not. It
and
almost
and I think that, a lot of this conversation around the trades, and that, you know, a lot of conversation about the trades and making a good living in the trades, and, this is a great industry or a career to be in. All of those things stand true, but I think what we're forgetting to educate on is that, you can make a good living in the trades. You can make a six-figure salary in the trades.
Mhm,
Y- you can make a really good five figure salary in the trades,
mhm.
and what you do with that money, it will be what will create your wealth. And
Yeah,
if that's just having better spending habits and saving, so be it. Like, maybe that's how
mhm,
you end up having, a retirement at the end of the day. Maybe you invest $100 a week or $100 a month, like whatever.
mhm.
There's all of these other resources to create wealth. And like, my point is that, we are advocating for this industry that you can make good money. And but I don't want, for me, I don't want to understand it, and for my team, I don't want it to be the understanding that this is how you this is it.
This
Like,
is the
you
end of
will,
it.
like,
Yeah,
this is the end of it. Like, you make $30 an hour, that's all you get for the rest of your life, because
yeah,
that's not, like, I just don't think that it, I think so many people are trapped in that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
myself included, like, myself, I've been there where it's like, I've never thought of, you know, making money outside of going to work every day.
Mhm,
And, there's all these sayings on, like, you're trading time for money. And
yeah,
that's great. And, like, again, you can make a good figure salary doing that. But ultimately, if you want to build beyond that, no matter what industry you're in,
mhm,
there needs to be other avenues, and
yeah,
whether that's investing in real estate, buying a fixer upper and flipping it. Like there's so many, there's so many avenues there that, when we do talk about this industry and when we do talk about making a living in this industry, I think it's worth also mentioning that, what to do with that money beyond, trading it for time. And I think that that goes back to school too,
Yeah.
where it's like we talk about how school doesn't help the trades and doesn't teach us what we need to know as a homeowner. I mean, I'm sorry, as a business owner, like we don't know how to pay taxes, like there's tax strategy to avoid overpaying in taxes and deferring like all of those things should be taught, but also the I think investing should be taught
Yeah.
and explained in a way that makes sense where it's like, I think everyone should invest
Yeah.
in,
No, I
in
agree
something.
entirely, man. I mean, my older brother, he's actually our accountant, but I mean, he's somebody that I talk to on a regular basis about like stock picks and cryptocurrency and like all that sort of stuff. But I mean, it wasn't until like this year that my wife and I are having serious conversations about investment properties and rentals and that sort of thing. And it's like my objective ultimately is to kind of phase out not necessarily phase out, but like try to match my income that I take from the business through other avenues because it's like, yeah, I can own this company and work for this company, owner operator sort of thing indefinitely, but it's like if I want to see any degree of wealth, it's like I
Right.
have to see it outside of residential construction because I mean, I was actually having this conversation on the way here with another builder. It's like it seems to me and him that one of the best ways to build like just this cash cow construction company is in spec homes. It's like you look at MI homes, you look at some of the larger residential
But
construction.
so like I'm not disagreeing with that, but the people that I know that make the most money in this industry, the volume of work they're doing
Yeah,
is mind-boggling,
I know,
mind-numbing.
I know, and
And they're doing so much, and it's like to compound the headaches that I deal with
no thanks.
that many times, it's like when so I started thinking about it and I was like, "Man, that's a lot of money you make." And I was like, "How what's your sales?" And I looked at the sales and I'm like, "All right." So then I said, What if I ignore like the big numbers? Let's look at the little numbers. What percent of the sales is your income?"
Yeah, it's a pretty
And when
small
you look
percent.
at it's pretty small, but it's also the same for everyone.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
it's like if you're doing $1 million a year or you're doing $100 million a year, yeah, you're making way more money, but you're still X percent of that of your overall sales.
yeah. But I mean, can't you chalk that up to effort expended? It's like if you're spending,
Totally. No, no, I'm
yeah,
not saying that I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying like as you do like you're gonna make more money as you do more work.
yeah.
And that which is, obviously like the intent, but like being able to utilize your money that you earn in trade for time
Mhm.
to then use that money to create money, where it's
But I
like
guess,
whether you're buying an investment and you're renting it,
mhm,
or like that's the conversation I have with like my team. It's like, you know I have this like feeling of obligation that I want to pay everyone so well that
mhm,
like there's this like I always joke around where it's like, if someone wants to drive a Ferrari to work or a Lamborghini to work, all right, show me how this works and we'll buy the Lamborghini.
yeah.
But
Did you
it's
watch my
like,
stories recently?
no, why do you have a Lamborghini?
No, I was like, me and my wife went to, there's this place called the Toy Barn on the north end of Columbus, and they had a Ferrari 488.
Oh,
And
is it a Pista? Because that's my
no, it
car.
wasn't a Pista, it was a Spider.
Uh,
But man, I was all over that thing. I
so
wanted it so bad.
and but and it's like now it's like, all right, I look at that car as like, how do I invest in something that
Yeah,
pays for that car?
right, exactly.
Where it's like, so we bought a little log cabin as a second home, but we
Mhm,
very much wanted to turn it into a rental.
sure.
And it's like we've generated rental income, short-term rental income that
Mhm,
pays for like the house now doesn't cost us any money.
mhm,
It took the all it took was the risk to get someone to lend us the money for the down payment, the bank to lend us the money for the mortgage, put it together, get it turned around and rented, and
mhm.
now it pays for itself and we get to enjoy it, whenever we want.
Yeah,
And it's like we looked at that as like, all right, when any money on top of that, we could use as play money.
yeah.
But now it's like, forget the play money.
Yeah.
Let's use the money that on top of that to
So I
do this
figured.
again.
And then
Like,
simultaneously, you're building. It was my watch.
oh,
Sorry.
like
And
some
then
robot just joined in.
yeah. And then simultaneously, you're building equity that you can borrow against in the future. And
Right.
I
And
mean,
it's like those are the things that no one, not that no one's teaching, but like that we in, I'll say the middle class, because I think that the blue collar in this industry tends to primarily center in the middle class.
yeah,
And and we don't have these opportunities where it's like you hear about the ultra wealthy not paying taxes, you
yeah,
hear about the ultra wealthy buying real estate that pays for real estate, and
yeah.
it's like, oh, I'll never understand that, or I'll never be able to do that. And it's like, but you
You
can, and
can.
you take them in bite-sized chunks. Like, Tyler and I have talked about it a number of times. It's like,
Mhm.
why, we're in an industry. One of the craziest things when it comes to this conversation is that I'm in Boston, and there's everyone is a developer.
Mhm.
Everyone's building and developing these homes and flipping them and turning them into, whether it's a flip or it's a new building. And it's like, and there's so many people in doing it that have never been in construction,
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
like, and here I am, I'm like, I'm in construction.
Mhm.
I understand how to put out a good product.
Yep,
I have the resources to put out a good product.
yep.
And I'm not utilizing that.
Man, I swear to God, this is the exact same conversation I've been having with my wife for the last 2 weeks. It's like we are more than capable of going down this avenue if we want to,
More than capable.
but it's like
And
we're
you have
so
and you have an advantage. And
exactly. Yeah,
and it all, like, this is it comes down to risk tolerance.
yeah,
In my opinion, like, it comes down to a risk tolerance where it's like, all right, well, do you want to take the risk in buying a property that you might not be able to rent?
yeah.
It's
But
like, okay, like, but history kind of tells us that real estate continues to trend upwards.
right.
I
Like,
and also I think risk tolerance, and I think like liquidity at the end of the day, like
Yeah,
having the financial security that you don't need that extra money for a down payment. Um, there's people, which I guess is similar to risk tolerance, but having that money invested in stocks or real estate sometimes is more comforting to people than they could get that back out.
mhm.
and totally agreed. And I'm not saying that real estate or stocks or like either of like, I'm just saying that no matter what you invest in, like, you're like to solely rely on just like the hourly rate wage that you make. Again, it's like this conversation isn't for those that are comfortable with that. This is for the conversations with, who I've talked with myself. Like, the conversation is for those that don't want to only live on
Yeah,
what, their hourly rate wages, and being able to utilize beyond that. Agreed, liquidity is super important. I think that when I relate that to risk tolerance, it's like, well, in the beginning, you can take calculated risks to not have to soak up your liquidity.
yeah,
Where it's like, maybe you partner with some guy that's going to lend you money at 20%. Now it's a huge risk, but like, maybe you can make that work where it's like, yeah, I'm going to borrow money. I'm going to borrow 100 grand for a down payment on a property. I'm going to pay him 20 grand for it. But I know, with my skill set, I can get in there and I can fix this place up in 3 months, and
yeah,
I can refinance it, or I can sell it, or whatever it is. And it's just that, at that point, like, I guess what I'm getting at is there's ways around the liquidity side of it. And it's now but it's work, and it's
yeah,
in understanding what your tolerance is, and understanding, you know, what you're capable of. But I think that, in investing, and we keep talking about real estate, it's like, I wouldn't do, we're actively in a deal right now where we're going to acquire a property and then build a quote unquote spec on, and
mhm,
sell. It'll be
mhm,
our first one. But I'm not doing that alone. I
mhm,
have, like, literally 5 people mentoring me through that,
mhm.
because they've done it. Here's what to look out for. And it's like, and I appreciate that. And I think that, going back to something we talked about earlier, we have that opportunity in the world that we live in today,
Mhm.
where
But then,
it's
like,
like,
you talk about risk tolerance. It's like three guys that own construction companies, like risk tolerance is pretty high. I mean, when it comes to the real estate market and investing and all that sort of stuff, I can't help but feel like anybody, like if you're a carpenter, if you're a contractor, it's like I feel like generally speaking, the risk tolerance is going to be pretty high. Like I almost feel like at this point,
But for
liquid.
certain things.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the that's the thing. It's like we'll sit here and talk about it, but what's the likelihood that the 3 of us walk away and then go shell out 100 grand or raise 100 grand to buy an investment property tomorrow? Probably pretty low.
pretty low. Yeah,
But
yeah,
there's 100 other just people out there that will do it without batting an eyelash.
yeah,
Yeah, well, it's definitely going to come down to personality for one thing, but I also think it comes down to at the point at which you are in your life,
totally.
um, where the younger you are, the more time and years hypothetically you have ahead of you to make money. You have you can take a little bit more risk, and then you get to the age where you start a family, and it's like, all right, it's not just me at this point. I've taken into consideration my wife, my kids, our house, everything that we kind of have invested into this life, and you try and be as smart, and maybe there's some aspects of your money that you have more aggressive and then some less aggressive, and maintain that liquidity if that's what makes you feel good. And then you get older and you get into past kind of your prime money making years as far as exchanging time for money, and you're like, well, maybe we should be a little less aggressive at this point because the risk is not worth it. Like, we're trying to ride this out, and we can't come back from a big loss at this point. So you try and be a little bit more conservative at that point in your life. So it definitely comes down to personality, but it's where you are, physically, and even just from an age basis in your life. What's on your plate at that point? What are you capable of coming back from?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And it's like, you mentioned like why doesn't everybody do this? And like everybody that's in the trades, and I can't help but feel like for the most part, it's likely that you're just blinded by what's directly in front of you. It's like, yeah, you're running a business. Yeah, you go to work, you work 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 5, 6 days a week, whatever it is. And then you have personal things, and then you want to go on vacation. And then
Hey, you don't have the
oh,
time.
it's like, oh shit, another year went by. And all of a sudden, I have no money in stocks. I have no money in retirement. I have no investment properties. And I mean, that's more or less where like my wife and I found ourselves this past year. It's like, and then we started pumping money into I mean, I TD Ameritrade sort of stuff and crypto and whatever else. And not that I'm like some investment guru or anything like that, but I mean, like I mentioned earlier that we live out in the country and we're talking about relocating closer to the city. And I mean, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity for anybody who's a contractor, has relationships with people in the trades. It's like, we started kicking around the idea of building ourselves a house. So we're talking about it internally, and then I reach out to a guy that a loan officer at a bank locally, and so I'm being BSing with him and talking about like what we can qualify for and all this sort of stuff, and then I just start like dropping the bug in the ear to a couple of my subcontractors, like talking to my plumber yesterday, and I was like, hey, might be building myself a house later this year. And he was like, oh, cool, yeah, I'll give you a discount, and it's like it's not expected, but it's like every dollar value that he takes off of his bill is equity that I'm then building in that house.
Mhm.
Like my management fee in managing the build is equity in the house. And then like we're talking about taking out a loan for like 4 or 500,000 to build this house. And it's like I can throw another 20 to 25% on the sale price of that house against the loan, because that's essentially what I'm going to make in equity on my
Mhm.
management and whatever discounts my subcontractors and vendors and all that sort of stuff give us. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're in the trades and you want to get into investing in real estate and all that sort of stuff, it's like if you have the money, it's a perfect avenue.
I also think just hiring somebody or paying somebody to do a lot of that stuff, you have to find somebody that you can trust. But as business owners, especially owner operators, a lot of times we want to control everything in our lives, and everything that kind of the umbrella of our business. Um, encompasses. And with investments, and even, Nick, you're looking to do a spec, it's like you should be bringing people on board that know how to do that. Like, you shouldn't be
Right.
figuring that out on your own. We have so much on our plate, and a lot of people are hung up. Well, I can't start investing. I don't even know where to start. And it's like, well, start at looking to hire somebody to handle your investments, because it's just nothing that you need to be spending your time doing. Like, spend your time making money, finding alternative sources of income, but don't spend your time trying to work out, the real estate market, or uh, the stock market, when there's people who they do that for a living.
And I think
Um,
that's what I was getting at with, like, the mentors. It's like, as you do these things, it's like, you're absolutely right. It's important to work with people that have experience, and I think the opportunity to connect with people is just higher these days, and making it a more powerful opportunity.
Sorry.
Do you lose audio?
Sounds like it.
Can you hear us?
Hey, do I still have you guys?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you?
His headphones died.
Can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He cannot hear us.
Maybe his headphones died.
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah. My my little sister FaceTimed me and somehow it kicked me off. Sorry about that.
I am in the studio.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying, like, I think
Leave me alone.
the world that we live in, the opportunity to connect with people and find, I keep using the word mentor, but the mentor can be anyone, like anyone that's done this and can help guide you through the process. Like, that's what it is. And Tyler, you're absolutely right, where it's like, it's not so much about using up your time that should be focused on the business or with your family, as to learning about crypto or learning about real estate investing or learning about stock markets. It's like finding people that can help you with that are trained in this. And it's going to be the same process as someone trying to find a good contractor,
Yeah.
where it's like they're going to try to find someone that's done this before, that has a portfolio that they can trust. It's no different. And it's, unless you have a desire to learn the stock market, it's like, why wouldn't you expect someone to pay for your services?
Right.
Why wouldn't you then turn around and pay for theirs?
Yeah. I mean, that was a conversation I was having with one of my guys earlier this week. It was like, we recently got a new painter, and he's been doing a kick-ass job for us. And he's my guy is a carpenter, and he gave a shot at painting one of our jobs, and painter showed up, and I showed up with the painter, and he was like, "Yeah, it's not really up to snuff in terms of quality, so we're going to repaint it." And it's like, okay, yeah, I paid my guy for a week to prep it and to spray it out, all that sort of stuff. But it's kind of like lessons learned. It's like, I would rather pay a professional to come in there and do the paint job instead of us trying to do it in house. And there was no like motivation for it up front in terms of like, oh, we're going to save money or anything along those lines. It was just like, hey, we're here. This needs to get done. Go ahead and paint it. But now, I mean, it's a similar mindset. It's like, you want a professional in just about any facet of business life, personal life, whatever it is.
Right.
So, yeah.
I had this conversation recently about, so I've been building this truck for,
The C10.
I don't even know. It's a Silverado, actually.
Oh.
I had a C10, but I sold the C10. But I have this 2002 Silverado. I've been building it. I literally don't even know how many years it's been now. But when I started it, it was just a hobby, and I really enjoyed fabricating. At one point, I thought my career would get into automotive fabrication.
Yeah.
And I chose to leave that as a hobby. And I had built the chassis, and I had learned so much building that chassis that I got to the end of it, and I took it out, I cut it up, and I built another one.
Mhm.
Because I learned so much. I was like, I want to make it better. And I did that 4 times. I built 4 different chassis for it, and at the end of it, it looked amazing. It was
Mhm.
sick. It was the geometry I knew was right because I had learned how to lay out geometry, like
Mhm.
all of this stuff, and it was on track to be finished. And at one point, it kind of went on the back burner when I had kids, and as I started thinking about it, I'm like, why am I trying to build this chassis? It's like I want someone to hire me because like, hey, I value how you build the best house. So
Mhm.
I want you to build the house.
Right.
And I was introduced to this guy that, he's probably arguably the best chassis builder in the United States.
Mhm.
And I'm talking to him and I'm like, I want you to help me build the chassis. He goes, dude, you built one.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know. And he's like, and it looks pretty good. I'm like, I know, but I know it could be better.
Yeah.
And it's because this isn't my profession.
Right.
I had a lot of fun doing it. I enjoyed the process of learning it, but at
Mhm.
this point in my life, it will never get done because I'm spending too much time learning it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like stocks, right? Where
Yep.
it's like, okay, I'm going to spend a ton of time learning it and then, cautiously dip my toes in the pool
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, you're 55 years old and
Right.
you got 3 grand in the stock market. It's like, if you had worked with someone early on in your
Yeah.
20s or 30s, it's like that can help guide you or help, mentor you through this. It's like you can still dip your toes in the pool at a far earlier age.
Yeah. Instead of losing 3 grand on GameStop.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I didn't get into that.
Yeah. I didn't either.
It was fun to watch and read about.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know when I'm supposed to buy. I'm like,
Right.
is it dipping?
Yeah. As soon as everybody started talking about it, it was too late.
Right.
Yeah.
But, like to full circle with this discussion, I think that, this is just, we want to continue to advocate for this industry. We want to continue to advocate that you can make a good living
Mhm.
and, that you can make a great 5 or 6 figure salary, some maybe
Mhm.
even 7 figure salary.
Mhm.
But the the fact of the matter is that, you know, there there has to be other opportunities if you want to continue to build wealth.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I
what is
mean,
that anecdote, man? It's like every millionaire has like 7 streams of income or something along those lines. I don't know where I
Yeah,
read that. It's probably like some
probably some
TikTok thing.
TikTok.
Yeah.
but it's true though, Nick, and even getting into this industry, people, that you're gonna have to make sacrifices, right? You're gonna
Mm,
have to work your way up, and maybe the pay isn't what your friends are going to be making coming out of college, but you have to realize, you are ahead of the curve. You don't have a tremendous amount of debt,
mm,
so instead of put yourself in the position where pretend that you have college debt that you're paying off and how much is that going to cost you per month and you don't go to college, and now put that same amount of money towards savings, as if you went to college, and now you're starting stockpiling that money, that you're you're ahead of the curve at this point in multiple ways, and then you don't have the debt, and also you're investing that money, and maybe you make some sacrifices up front for the first 5-10 years that you get out into the field, but then by the time you're 30 years old, 25, 30 years old, you're starting to hit your stride, you're making a little bit more money, you can start to invest your money a little more heavily, buy a house, at this point, a lot of times people depend on a two income family. So that's something, by the time you hit 25, 30, and you start settling down and discuss having children and everything else, you already have this this little stockpile, and you've squirreled away this money where you're not starting from ground zero at 30, 35 years old, but it has to start sooner than later. And that's one thing, that getting the word out there to people, especially in our industry, is you can't wait.
Mhm.
The sooner that you do this, it's you don't want to do it when your back's up against the wall, right? You
Right.
want to start early and start putting a little bit away at a time, and just creating that discipline with yourself and with your paychecks. And I think that long term, you will have another source of income that's not you waking up and going to work every day.
Mhm. But I mean,
And
that's nation like it doesn't matter what your profession is at that point. It's like everybody should be doing the exact same thing. It's just for whatever reason you don't see it as often in the trades.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of it is it's one of those jobs, where you you don't have it's not as formal,
Mhm.
where you go into a job and they're going to be taking x amount of money out of your paycheck and putting it into a 401k.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where you get in and oftentimes you're working an hourly wage. It's not a salary job, and you're getting paid in exchange for the time that you put in. And I don't think that it happens a lot in our industry. I think that there's multiple reasons why. I think the pay isn't as good as other industries when you're working just for somebody, either as a laborer or as a helper.
Mhm.
But you do have to kind of consider that you're coming into this with a lot of times no college debt.
Right.
So maybe you're making a little less money. Figure out what all of your friends that you grew up with are paying on a monthly basis to pay back their college loans, and then like cut that in half and put that amount of money away every month.
Right.
And just you're now not only not starting in debt, but you're also starting to save immediately coming out of high school. Um, which I think that we have to do a better job of talking to the younger kids about that. It's tough though.
Yeah.
You're 21 years old to 24, 25 years old. Like you you feel so young. You feel that you have your whole life ahead of you, and to think like, yeah, I gotta save for retirement. Like, what 21-year-old is thinking like, oh yeah, my retirement, this, that, or the other thing? They're like, no, I want to buy this. I want this car. I want this chick.
Yeah.
I want to go here for dinner. Like, I want to go on this trip.
Yep.
Have different priorities at that age.
Yeah. I mean, shit, man, it really didn't occur to me until like really the last 2 or 3 years to start putting money away for retirement. And honestly, my wife was advocating for it more than anything. It was like I was kind of the impression of like, well, a little bit of time's going to go by. We're going to put some money aside, and then we're going to put it into real estate. But she's like, no, we need to like start a retirement account, and like we need to look at IRAs and 401ks and all that sort of stuff. And like you're self-employed, and we got to figure out insurance for you. It's like
Mm.
fortunately I'm able to be on her policy, but it's like, yeah, I mean, there's all this other stuff that nobody ever talks about. Um, that like I'm just now like at 31 years old starting to figure out. It's like, yeah, no, I do need a retirement account and I do need health insurance because like I'm starting to fall apart after 15 years on trades.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
it it's definitely important. Which reminds me, my wife got a new job, and I went to go pick up my prescription the other day, and they're like, "Your copay is $135." I was like, "What?" It's usually like 5. I
Yeah.
guess there was like a lapse between insurance, like for a couple days. I'm like,
Hmm.
you got to be kidding me. So I had to go tell her thank you for the health insurance, because if
Appreciate it.
not, yeah, it cost me a lot more to get medication and medical treatment.
Yeah. So Nick, how does that work for you with a larger company? I mean, are you I know that that's kind of a conversation that's been going around a bit is trying to provide um like small relatively air quotes small
Hmm.
residential companies with some degree of health insurance and 401ks and I
So
know a
we
lot of
work
people.
through yeah, we use Gusto for payroll, and they have kind of all these plugins to offer all these benefits.
Okay.
So, like, we're setting up the 2 new companies right now, so we're literally going through it actively, but
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you. The I meant that endearingly. I didn't wanna breeze over that.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah, alright, anyway, so we offer they basically it makes it super easy to, kind of set all that stuff up. So for us, we have health insurance offered in all the companies.
Mhm.
And they basically walk you through like how much do you want to contribute, how much do you want your employee to contribute, like
Mhm.
all of that. And that's something that I did on my own in the beginning, and it was difficult because I had no threshold as to how much I should offer.
Right.
And they're like, "Well, some people paid the entire insurance for their employees, and they don't contribute at all."
Okay.
I'm like I'm like, "All right, what percent of people are doing that?"
Yeah.
And like, "Well, it's really low." I'm like,
It's
"Okay,
like
I
the
don't think
top
I need to be
2%.
I
Yeah.
don't need to be in that yet because I like
Yeah.
this is a huge like we've never budgeted for this before."
Right.
So I might get this wrong, but I believe that we contribute 75% for an employee and their family
Okay.
for medical. Vision and dental are like literally $20. So
Mhm.
and we offer 50% coverage on that. And we also offer a 401k with a match. So we offer 100% match up to 3%,
Mhm.
and then we 50% match 4 and 5%.
Okay.
I don't know why that's the numbers that came about, but I know it was because of the conversation that I had with that company that was like, "Hey, I wanna be I can't I can't just go for the top tier, but I
Right.
wanna be a little bit more, um, on the giving side than just
Sure.
like your standard, like, hey, we offer 401k, but it's actually a shit product.'
Right.
Like,
But it's
we
basically
want
just what you put into it.
yeah, and it's like I was like, I wanna be able to, offer a match and be a little bit more, you know the hell's the word? Not the opposite of greedy.
Contributable.
Contributable,
What's
Generous.
that?
generous, thank you. I wanna be a little bit more generous,
Yeah.
and, and those things like that wasn't from day one, like,
Yeah.
we had added those over time, and, as we saw, like, I actually made the change to the like, when we started, I had health insurance, but I didn't have any family plans on it, and
Right.
none of us had kids.
Right.
Like, not like, literally no one had kids,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they had kids, and I sat down with one of my guys, and they're like, "Dude, like, my health insurance spiked." I was like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean?" They're like, "Dude, it's another, like, $1,000 a month."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Man," I'm like, "That's I mean, if I contribute, that means it's another $1,000 a month for me,
Right.
or
Yeah.
we
Per
split
person.
it, right?" Right.
Yeah.
So, well, I think family is actually, like, no matter how many kids,
Well, no, I mean
um
like per employee.
per employee,
Yeah.
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 So I had made the change. I was like, "Screw it, like, I wanna be a good employer.
Yeah.
I don't want my team to like, I don't want this to be, like, a pain point for anyone," and I
Yeah.
made that change, and, my and I let my accountant know after the fact that she was like, Nick, do you know what that just cost?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"No." She goes, "Okay, well, here's the number of how much it's extra
Yeah.
it's costing you per pay
Yeah.
period." I'm like, "Oh my
Oh shit.
gosh."
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, and like at the end of the day, it's like, it was the right thing to do, but we should have obviously talked about it and budgeted for it.
Sure.
And but it's important. It's like these are the things that, you talk about this industry and like the importance of, contributing to someone's well-being,
Yeah.
you know, health insurance. Like, you don't want like I don't want my guys not having health insurance because they are actively deciding not to, so they put more money in their pocket. I want
Right.
the health insurance to be like a non-thought,
Right.
where it's
Well, I
like
mean,
everyone should have health insurance.
yeah. I mean, so often we have such high expectations of employees. It's like, well, they deserve to, it's a two-way street. It's like
Right.
they should have high expectations for us. And it's like, if you want to be um, seen as a professional tradesperson, you should be treated adequately. And, health insurance, I feel like is one of those things that should come along with it. It's been something that I've been looking into well, mainly for Pat. He's the only guy that I've had for consistently for 2 years now. Um,
Right.
everybody else is kind of fly by night, but
And
um,
and I know a lot of Motif is just Doug. So they won't actually like the plan. We were gonna just copy the plan. They were like, we can't do it if only one person is on it. Like they require a minimum of two
yeah,
employees to be enrolled. And so like there we have to look at other options. But I know some people like they do a cash account where it's like they'll fund a cash account so then they can go and buy their own insurance.
Yeah, they'll give 'em a
You know,
stipend for it. I mean, even having
right.
just like generic 401k is still an advantage to your employees because I, I
yeah,
Totally.
I think that you can put more money into a company 401k, which is a tax incentive versus like a private IRA. You can
Mhm.
write off more money that way. So it's still, even if you get a company that's not matching what you're putting in, it's not a terrible thing. You can invest more in that account and push off taxes, which is it's better than just putting it into a standard IRA where you're limited to the amount that you can write off in a year putting it into that.
Yeah. I think there is a limit for like an LLC sole proprietor. Like if I wanted to put into a 401k, I think the limit is like 59,000 a year. Um, as
Yourself
far
personally.
Yeah, as far as like
Yeah.
what would be deductible, I don't think there's actually a dollar amount limit to what I can put in a 401k.
No,
We're talking a lot.
there's not a dollar amount as to what you could put in, but there's a dollar amount for what is you're not going to get taxed on.
Yeah, would be deductible.
You can put as much as you want into it. I think that it's like 6 grand or something that can be tax deductible per year. But as an employee going into a 401k, it's much more than that you can basically defer your taxes on
Mhm,
working for an employer
mhm,
versus if you had a separate IRA with an investor, it's going to be the same thing. You can only put a certain amount in that's going to be tax deferred.
mhm.
But that
What's your vacation policy set up? Would you say his name Matt?
Pat.
Pat.
close
So
Yeah,
enough.
like
yeah,
Matt Pat.
Matt, Pat. Um, we don't really. I mean, we don't have a policy in place. Pat is basically like, I'm going to take this amount of time off, this amount of time off, and
It
that's
just
pretty much it.
works.
Yep, it just works. Yeah, as long as
Are you
there's
paying him for that time?
not right now. I
So there's
should be.
no PTO.
No, I should be. I probably will be after this, after I go on blast in front of thousands of people on the Modern Craftsman podcast. But no, but no, we
Well, let me ask you, like, why? Like, what has been the reason? And
no,
you know,
it's a great question, and I'm actually prepared to answer it.
okay,
So we up until this past year, there really hasn't been. I mean, everything going on with COVID and all that sort of stuff in Columbus specifically has kind of like spiked
mm,
the renovation market. So
hmm
we're absolutely saturated with work, and it really hasn't been up until this last year and a half to where I would even be able to afford to
sure,
pay anybody for time off. I mean, I've never had an issue with payroll or
hmm
drawing a salary or anything along those lines, but it's like it hasn't really been up until the last year and a half that I would have been able to afford to pay anybody to
yeah.
take time off.
Your margins were tight. The hours he
Yeah.
worked, he got paid for, but that
Yep.
was
And
yeah,
then, I mean, we were giving a lot of weight. We were giving a lot of work away too. I mean, we were overbuilding and to get into a specific market, so we were spending a
totally
lot more.
understood. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we were spending a lot more time on site than we should have. We were, going beyond whatever the allowances were. I mean, I paid to have walnut interiors put on a job earlier this year out of
yeah,
my own pocket just because I wanted to have them on the job. Um, which is like in that specific instance, it was like a couple $1,000s, but you extrapolate that out over the last 4 years of work, and
mm,
most of the time it's like I'll pay myself, I'll pay Pat, I can pay for the vehicles, but when push comes to shove and you want to take 2 weeks off to go on vacation in Florida, it's like, hey man, you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay you for that time off, but going forward,
but
that's the intention. Sorry, go
and
ahead.
it's fun. Like as far as being put on blast, someone's gonna say, well, if you didn't spend on the walnut interiors and you
Yeah,
allocated that $1,000 to Pat, he would have
yeah,
been able to
maybe.
take the week off.
Yeah,
But
no, and I,
at the end, like, because I've been there and I've had similar. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to afford this. Like,
yeah,
how do I afford being able to pay someone for 3 weeks off for the year?
yeah,
Where it's like, and what if they take off during a tough month? And at the end of the day, it's like you like,
figure it
that's where
out.
you start getting into, yeah, you figure it out, which like is the cop out answer, but that's when you start understanding like what the true cost of that person like Pat
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
Where it's
Yeah, it's
like,
not just an hourly rate.
right, where it's
Yeah.
like, all right, if he makes $30 an hour, and that $30 an hour actually needs to be billed out at $62 because, I'm factoring in his vehicle, his cell
Yeah.
phone, his insurance, like I'm going to give him 4 weeks vacation, and that 4 weeks vacation has a value to it.
Right.
So add that in and then divide it by the, 2,080 hours there are in a year,
Mhm.
or minus the four, like that's where, once you get to that point and you start understanding like what that the cost is per person,
Mhm.
that's when you start being able to like almost subconsciously allocate these funds.
Yeah.
And but yes, in short, like you do it and then you figure it out. Where
Right.
it's like, dude, like I'm committed to giving him a week off, and his, whatever it's $1,000 that it's gonna like check usually that I cut that week. So, when I get that next $1,000, I'm gonna put that aside and just put that in a piggy bank. So when he takes that week, I can fund it.
Mhm.
You just have to
Yeah.
make sure that whatever you're putting in place right now and implementing, like you said it, this is directly related to the boom in your market.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That and it's not just what you're putting in place for employees, but lifestyle, what you're
Yeah.
going to put on your plate for the next 5 years or so. If this market does not continue on the trajectory that it is, that you're not putting your back up against the wall.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where a lot of guys and girls get into trouble by growing and getting more vehicles, and we're going to get jackets for everyone and this, that, and the other thing, and then work dries up and they're like, well, we just made all of the decisions over the past year based on the work volume we've had for the past couple of years, and it doesn't look like that's going to be carrying through now. And it puts a lot of people under. So you just have to make sure that you're not making your decisions based on right now what's happening today. You do
Right.
have to kind of project and extrapolate that out. Where like even coming to mind, it's thinking like, how do you combat that where you're still giving these people an opportunity, and it's like potentially setting up a separate account, where that money is going into, and it's like that can be then given to people as bonuses if work
Mhm.
continues to kind of move in the direction that it is, where it's like, all right, now I do realize we're putting this into a separate account that can go out as yearly bonuses, and I do realize that we're at a point in our business that we can sustain this. Now we can give them 401k, and then after
Mhm.
that, keep on with the bonuses, and then we realize that what, we can match them up to a certain percentage. It doesn't all have to happen overnight.
Mhm.
And I don't think that you want to necessarily put so much pressure on yourself to make that happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, I mean, we've changed a lot of things moving forward into this year. Um, like for starters, our billing structure. I mean, we're switching over from fixed price over to cost plus, so I feel like there's going to be a little bit more of a safety net there for us. But I, like I said before, I mean, for the last 4.5 years, we've been kind of aiming for more or less, well, maybe for the last 3 years, we've been aiming for this market that we're finally getting into, and we're starting to price ourselves according to who we're bidding against. Like before, I'm not saying that we were undercutting ourselves by any means, but I mean, we certainly weren't coming to the table with the same level of pricing that a lot of other people were. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that we were, it's a new face in town. We're a young company. The overhead is relatively low, so we were able to be a little bit more competitive on these bids. But toward the end of the job, it was like we're over investing in terms of time, we're over investing in terms of quality of product, and then there's virtually no meat on the bones left, with the exception of payroll.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, so going into this year, we've priced ourselves accordingly to be able to support a few more of those things, and to stick around in this market, and for the business to be sustainable in this market going forward is really what the objective is with our pricing model for this year.
I think, and
So,
I think that's definitely what you have to do. And I just think it's baby steps, just like you said that
mhm,
your business was an organic growth. And I think implementing all these systems and processes and kind of standards, it's going to be along the same line. You don't want to put too much in place at once, make so many changes that you can't really gauge the impact of that on your business.
Mhm.
So, put a plan in place and see where you want to be and where you want to go with it, and put one, get the wheels rolling with one thing, and circle back in a few months, 6 months, a year, and see what that looks like, and see what else you
Mhm.
can implement at that point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
you may
think insurance has always been one of those big ticket items for me, is like providing health insurance, vision, dental, and all that stuff. PTO is, I mean, it kind of goes without saying that that's something we should offer, but
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like I said, is do one thing at a time and kind of gauge
That's
the
exactly it.
health of
Yeah.
your business at that point. If it's just like anything, if you make four changes at once, you're not going to know what
It's a nightmare.
impacted what.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't look back at the end of the year. It's too hard. It becomes too convoluted. Where it's like if you're looking to make an adjustment, you got to change one thing and then see
yeah.
how that one thing impacted the health of your business, and then you can
Mhm.
add another thing in, but you can't do them all at once, because then you don't know what's responsible for you going up and what's responsible for you going down.
Right. Yeah, and then the other side of that too is like, I mean, for the longest time it was me working by myself, and now all of a sudden it's 2 years later, and I like look up when the dust settles, and it's like, oh, there's more people to take into consideration than just
Yeah.
like me and the job now. So it's Pat's family, it's my new guy, it's his family, it's another new guy that might be starting in a couple of weeks, and his family. So I mean, the more we're able to get to a point where I'm not bags on in the field every single day, the more I'll be able to have that kind of macro perspective on everything and start putting these systems into place that
Mm.
allow people to live the life that they deserve.
Yeah, it's just going to take time.
Yeah,
You're definitely fresh in business, even though it probably feels like a freaking lifetime.
dude, it's especially this last 2 years. Holy shit,
Dude, I know
COVID.
we shared many conversations, but it's like, yeah, the last 2 years, I'm incredibly grateful for the time that we actually took to work on the business, but man, I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, no, I don't blame
You
you.
know,
I
it's
don't blame
like it
you.
was just a tough time, and we certainly persevered through, and there was a lot of loss, but to look back now and see what we've accomplished, especially you know from SOP and standard operating, like all the systems that we put in place, that it's invaluable at this point.
Yeah,
But when you're in
yeah,
the
no,
midst of it, it's tough.
yeah. I mean, I have enough. Like most of the time I'm focused on like getting this scribe tight and getting this miter tight and like making sure that my
Right, which makes it
subcontract.
hard to also run a
Oh yeah,
business.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, you at the end of the day of slinging baseboard or framing an addition or anything like that, it's like the last thing I want to do is sit down on my couch and review insurance numbers and talk
Yeah.
about 401ks. But
I mean, you could always come work for someone.
is this another offer? Oh god.
I'm gonna
Here,
send you our
here.
benefit. I'm gonna send you our
Yeah.
benefits package.
Send
Look
over
at
the
all the
handbook.
benefits I
Uh-huh.
offer.
Send over the handbook. I dig it. Yeah.
Hmm.
I want to live in Southie. I want to live in that building that you love.
Oh my gosh, dude. Tyler. He was in Boston, and I don't even know if he posted anything else, but he posted this one building
Yeah.
that had I drive by every morning, and it's the biggest piece of crap.
Yeah.
Like, a developer's building it, and it's just so poorly done. The detail, like, just no detailing. Like, it's just so bad. And what did you write? Like, "Oh, I
Uh,
love seeing the architecture in Boston," or
I
something?
don't
And I was
remember what
like,
it was, man, but
I was so mad. I
they,
was like, this dude,
yeah.
I hope
How
he's
dare
like,
he?
and I get it, like, you drove by fast, and, like, when you drive by fast, like, I stare at the thing.
Yeah. Well,
It's
so
like, "What?" They have aluminum flashing on top of, you know, faux limestone panels? Like,
yeah,
what are they
yeah,
doing?
yeah, they got to figure it out. That building is a
It's
fucking disaster.
oh,
Um, but no, so honestly, the reason why I posted it was because blue skin is something that we never see
oh,
out
that's
here.
right. I
I
do
was
remember the blue
so
skin,
like I was driving by and I was so pumped to just see like a roll of blue skin getting used somewhere. And
yeah.
like I had it on a job here a couple of years ago, and people were like, "Well, what the hell is that? We don't use that around here. We use Tyvek." And I'm like, "Okay, like keep using Tyvek, man. That's fine." But
at the end of the day, like, so, I was talking about Tyvek in our like a passive house course, and
Mhm.
at the end of the day, like all of this stuff works.
Yeah,
All of it works.
yeah,
Like the issues that people have with Zip, are issues that can be resolved.
yeah,
People that have issues with Tyvek, that things that can be resolved. It
mhm.
comes down to the quality of the install
Right,
with all of these products.
right.
Some of them are easier to install.
Yep.
Yes, there's no doubt about it.
Mhm,
But when they're installed, when these products are installed correctly,
mhm.
they all can perform within reason.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
they're not all
absolutely.
gonna perform the same, but they're all gonna perform to, a high capability when they are installed properly.
Yeah, yeah, and
And,
honestly, like,
blue skin's great, but, like, that I can tell you right now that blue skin wasn't installed right.
no, no, it wasn't. It was flapping in the wind.
Yeah,
But
and it's
honestly, like,
like yeah.
that's why I see a lot of people using Tyvek still around here. It's like I had a conversation with another builder. Hi. I had a conversation with another builder recently, and he was like, "Yeah, we use Tyvek because everybody knows how to install it." I was like, "Touche, man. Yeah, I get it." And I was kind of like
Right,
on my high horse talking about, "Oh, like we use Zip System," and he was like, "Yeah, go ahead. Good luck finding a
right,
framer that's going to roll your tape." Like,
right.
touche.
You gotta get Pat to roll everything.
I know. He's got one of the new metal ones. He broke my composite one. I
Listen,
went
Pat,
to
if you roll this house in 2 days, I will give you a week off
yeah,
vacation,
paid. Um,
paid.
I went to that um, home building crossroads thing
Yeah.
that
Find home building put on?
no, it was Peter Yost and Steve Basic, and Peter Yost gave me a composite zip roller for like answering some question that he like opened up, and he was like, "Oh
Yep.
yeah, like yeah, you're right. Here's this composite zip roller," and I was like, "Oh man, like I've got a composite zip roller from Peter Yost." Like I was so excited about it, and
Pat's like, "F that thing."
yep, fuck this, I'm breaking it. And then yeah, it was just a couple weeks ago it snapped, and I was like, "Oh, they make metal ones now apparently, so I'll get a metal one."
Nice.
But
Well, dude, I'm glad you finally got on the podcast.
dude, I can't believe what is it 2 hours and 12 minutes has gone by already.
Yeah,
That's
it's
absurd.
fast, man.
How does that
Oh.
happen?
So where can people find you?
So on Instagram, DelBiondo Homes. We've got a website, delbiondohomes.com. Like all of your guests, it probably needs some updating.
I know a
Happens.
company that can help you with that.
Happens.
Yeah. Oh, do you know somebody that owns a media company?
I'll forward you their contact
Yeah.
right after this.
Sick. I'm
Yeah,
gonna have
perfect.
you redo my website.
Let's do it.
Yeah, same. I
We're,
could
we're
use some
booking for
videography.
2024 right now.
I'll
my
s-
God.
I'll s- I'll skirt in
Sorry.
sooner.
Just like run a run.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Free
man.
coffee. Meow, meow. Oh my God.
Oh,
Well, I appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun.
yeah, appreciate you, man.
First podcast ever. Oh,
First podcast. Oh, I know you have an announcement, but first podcast ever, and he's in an actual podcast.
I know that's
studio.
sick.
Yeah.
It's
That
like
boy
our
goes hard.
200th.
Well done.
It's ours like
Yeah.
our
He's like, I don't do
200th, and I've never
anything
done it in the
half-assed.
studio.
Everything is 100%.
yeah. I don't
What?
fuck
What are you
around.
pointing
I'm
at?
like the Nick Schiffer of the Midwest.
What are
For
you
real.
pointing at? I don't have a studio.
I was I'm saying I go hard. No, I was talking about what Tyler was just saying. This is the 200th episode.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I was like when
Maybe
we
I'll
started
get maybe I'll
talking
get a studio.
when we
You
started
are
talking
number
about this.
200.
I know, that's crazy, man. When we were talking about this a couple months ago, I started looking at the calendar and I was like, "Oh shit, I think I just signed up for the 200th episode." I hope they weren't planning like some really special cast.
We were.
We
it's
were.
you.
It was you.
Oh, it's me.
Nice
Oh,
coordination,
God.
Tyler.
We got to
Yeah.
figure out what you win as a prize.
Yeah, a week paid vacation.
There
Yeah,
you
that's
go.
true. I'll take
There you go.
one too.
Sweet.
Brought to you by
Um,
the coffee.
Yeah, perfect. I know we got to go, but are you guys going to JLC or
IBS.
IBS?
IBS?
Yeah.
Yes, in Orlando.
Yep.
I will be there.
See you there.
I'm very curious to see what it looks like this year.
You think
You
it'll
know,
be different?
Orlando or the
Oh
convention?
yeah. Well, I know what Orlando's going to look like. The convention. I'm curious at what capacity
Yeah.
everyone is going to be there.
Sure.
JLC this year was light.
Yeah.
LBM Expo was super light.
Yeah.
Um, it sounds like a lot of people are going to IBS, but I'm starting to hear trickles of a lot of vendors not going.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of talks I'm doing, and it's always exciting. What my biggest not worry, but like the biggest reason people go is for the networking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Honestly,
would be
that's the only reason I went.
I know. So I'm wondering, like, are these events going to still happen?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if that will be where people dial back, where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, we're doing, having a booth, but we're not going to have a 200-person event where everyone
Sure.
can hang out and get a drink.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that we may see a lack, but I'm completely speculating at this point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I remember when I was chatting with Ken at JLC, that's what he was saying, is like, it's
dude,
totally
it's
different.
literally when this podcast comes out, it's 1, 2, 3 weeks away.
Yeah. No,
Three and
I'm
a
pumped.
half weeks away.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never been to Florida in February, but hopefully it's the opposite of what Ohio and
I think
Boston are right now.
it's gonna be warmer.
Yes.
I hope so.
It'll definitely be the opposite of what Ohio and Boston is right now. Cool, man.
All
All
right,
right,
guys.
dude.
Thanks. Appreciate you getting the booth.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah.
Best audio for the guest ever.
Look at that. See you guys. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You could just click the window. It doesn't. The leave button won't work.
Dude, it's really cold. And I didn't shut the water off in the log cabin, and I have no way of telling if something burst. So I'm
Yeah, because it's all open underneath.
mildly freaking out.
How
Well, I
cold?
rock-wooled it last year, and I was supposed to put a plywood air barrier, and I never did. So I'm sure there's plenty of animals in it at this point, but we'll see. I'm gonna head up there
See
this weekend
how
to
well the
check it
rock
out.
wool works.
Yeah. Well, all the piping is in the house.
Yeah.
There's only a well line that comes up, and it's one of those wells where it's like supposed to, like, after it fills the tank, it's supposed to
Drain
release
back
all the
down.
water. Yeah,
Yeah,
drain,
below.
like, back drain or whatever. So in the house is warm. Like, the house is like
Yeah.
65 degrees, but it's like, in the cabinets and stuff, it's not that warm. And usually I leave the cabinet doors open if we leave and I know it's gonna be cold, and we didn't. So we'll see.
Yeah, I was just looking because it's the first time we've got any cold water or cold weather in a bit, like, consistently. It's
Mm.
been pretty warm, but I have yard hydrants that basically are like a valve that shuts off below grade, and once it, like, fills up and you turn it down, it drains below the frost line too.
Mhm.
And I've always every other year shut them off because I don't blow them out because they're that plastic irrigation line now, but they've never been concerned with them freezing that far below grade. But I like have them still on, so it's the first year that I'm like I want to run them all winter just to see. And there's
Mm.
that's the way that they're designed to work. I've just never done it since I lived here, but I was like, I'm gonna find out.
Yep. Oh, we don't have any new reviews this week.
What? I didn't
I
ask
know.
anyone. I got to get on and ask some
This is
people.
Tyler, this
I've
is
been
your,
slacking.
this
Jesus.
is
New
this is your
year,
I know.
not new me. I got to get
We
on
did
that.
we did break the 1,000, ratings. I don't know if that technically, no, it didn't happen before New Year. We were damn close right before New Year, but either way, if you guys, wanna drop us a review, make sure you hit up our iTunes, let us know how we're doing, constructive feedback, hit us up on Instagram. I always appreciate your repost. We got a new format coming out. We're gonna be sharing a little bit more in our in-feed on Instagram and try to provide you guys some value there. Pull out the snippets from the podcast, these episodes, especially if there's a good quote. Typically, Tyler says something witty and follows up with a chuckle, and then someone gives some real feedback. So we'll try to yank those out of these episodes.
Uh-oh.
As always, guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Molding and Millwork. If you want to check out Duration, it's Duration. Oh my God. It's durationmillwork.com. Let me do that again. Guys, this podcast is brought to you by Duration Millwork. So durationmillwork.com. Make sure you check them out on Instagram. They are your new favorite siding and trim made from boral, which is fly ash material. Like we said last week, it is a composite, but it's a a material that is being diverted from going into landfill and turned into a sustainable product. Also
And
brought to you
not composite in the sense of, I feel like
plastic.
people's heads go
Yeah,
towards plastic or decking. Um,
it's not.
which when we were talking to Keith, like, that's the term that he used, and I was like, "Composite, what?"
I know.
Um,
He's trying to change
I guess.
the the
He's
connotation
yeah,
behind
he's
the word
trailblazing.
composite. Oh,
Cool.
he's trailblazing. He's definitely trailblazing. Also brought to you by the guys over at Reno Run. They are in 3 cities in the US, Chicago, Boston, and Philly, and up in Canada. I think they got up in 2 cities. Are they called cities in Canada?
Provinces. No,
Provinces.
I
Thank
don't
you,
really
Tyler.
I actually had Chris Murray, who lives in, Saskatchewan. He was like, "I'm dying right now listening to you try and talk about Canada." He's like, "If you call me, I'll educate you on it because you're way off."
Oh my gosh. Well, apologies for anyone in Canada that's listening. But if you guys want to check out Rent or Run, make sure you hit up podcast.rentorun/Modern Craftsman. The first delivery is on us. It is go over to the website, rentorun.com, check it out, and you'll find out about it
Coming to a
yourself
province near you.
and city.